Hey, what is going on, guys? Hope you're having a fantastic Sunday. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. We are one less tonight, but he'll be joining us shortly. Ryan's on the way home from a soccer game or soccer practice with his kid. Jonathan, what is happening, sir?
Oh, not too much. Been a
You
pretty
doing?
regular week. Not too much to complain about. Been a good week actually.
Everything's been good. Everything's normal.
Yeah.
Super cool, man. So I've been trying to get over a cold. So if I have a little deep voice, I'm not going through puberty again. I already did that.
A little Barry White happening.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I'm working on a new video. Man, I was wanting to get on it on Friday. Came down with a cold, and I mean, I felt like trash, man, and just didn't have a whole lot of energy. So I rested, relaxed, do what you do when you get a cold. And what's up, Ryan? And howdy, sir.
Lagging, evidently.
Uh oh. You're good, man.
Oh,
But yeah,
seem
so I
to
was
be
trying
lagging.
to get over that for a couple days, and then I'm like, I'll work on it tonight. And so as soon as we get done with this, I'm gonna be in the theater room filming and try to edit that tonight. And then I've got kind of like a photo shoot tomorrow. We have a thing in our area called the Strawberry Festival. So it's kind of like a big deal. A lot of people know us for, I mean, we're a real small town, but they know us for the Strawberry Festival. They travel from other states. Most of the time, it's like older people. Just something that's kind of cool. But they have all kinds of rides. It's like your state fair, but it's a real smaller kind of venue. There's a lot of concerts that come through. Ludacris was here last night, so my daughter got to, yeah, she
That's
got
a
to help.
strange combination with a mostly old people crowd. That you
Yeah,
mentioned.
well, they bring in everybody. I mean, they bring in, of course, they bring in country people. They have like their biggest one, I think, this year was, is it Willie Nelson? Not Willie Nelson. Anyway, I can't even think of who it is. He's an older gentleman. So anyway, so that's going on, and so I'm helping out tomorrow with kind of like some photography for them. So and then I'm gonna try to get my video done tonight, so I don't have to mess with that then. So, well, cool deal, man. So while Ryan's figuring out his stuff, we'll say hi to some folks in the chat. Steve, good to see you. Let me pull this up here.
Still kind of stuttery. I don't know what its deal is.
I don't know, man. You got that Dollar Tree Wi-Fi, or what's going on over there?
I think
I
it's
don't
when
know.
you go to 48 speakers, you get too much magnetism with the Wi-Fi.
Those magnets are messing up, dude. That's
Mm.
killing it, dude. Dude, Michael, I'm with you, man. Let's have M-Wave next week. So we're gonna postpone it, not next week, but in July, because we've actually got a lot more stuff.
We
that we're
originally
planning.
scheduled it for next week, and we just had to move it.
So we're trying to get even more vendors on board. We had meetings last week, some great meetings there. So we may have possibly even another 3 or 4 vendors on board. So they're having some meetings. We had a second meeting with another company, and so they are now excited about it. They've got their team excited about it. So some doors are opening up, some really cool stuff. And so once those things are solidified, of course, we'll let you guys know about it on the M-Wave website, on the newsletter. So if you're not already subscribed to the M-Wave newsletter, you can head over to the website, midwestavexperience.com. Dates for that is July the 14th through the 16th. We're super pumped, man. A lot of changes are happening, and we're just super excited, man.
When will the
So-
schedule be distributed?
That's a great question, Ryan. When will the schedule be distributed?
If we had a schedule, we would know.
Exactly. So that's one thing. So when working with the brands, they're still trying to figure out what they're bringing, who all's going to be involved.
I like how you
that
tried to
happen.
pawn that off on me.
No. I was just asking a question.
Well, Ryan, since you know.
No, I was stalling so I could come up with an answer.
I see.
But yeah, but we'll have, as soon as we have kind of a more details from the vendors on what they're bringing, because the last thing I want to do is promote what ifs and possibilities. I don't want to do that. I mean, think about it. We get enough of that with brands. They're like, yeah, we're going to be adding this sometime in the future to your AVR, but go ahead and buy it now, and then it may or may not happen. It's frustrating. So the last thing we want to do is to build a brand that is based off of future expectations. It's like, no. Let's tell you what we have available now. If you're ready, if you're on board, if you believe in what we're doing, come on, man. We're going to have a blast, whether we got 10 brands, 2 brands, 1 brand. Last year was incredible. We had so much fun. A lot of great content, a lot of great just experiences that we had together. And we're going to do more of that. But man, it's already turning out so much bigger than last year.
Yeah. As much fun as we had last year.
Yeah.
We got a lot more potential this year.
Yeah,
Like
man.
A lot more.
Yeah, it's super cool. So we're excited. And we're going to be introducing some new things this year. We're going to be adding some seminars. Because really, we want to make this thing fun, educational. We want to give you experiences that you just don't get at another trade show. And meet some cool people, man, like Ryan and Jonathan.
That's debatable.
Because they're the cool people. So, but yeah, man, we're going to have a blast. So if you're interested in that, you'll hear us mention that quite a bit over the next several months as we lead up to Midwest AV Experience. Check out all the details over there on the website. So let me say hi to some folks in the chat. Bounce back up here all the way to the top. And as always, if you guys got questions, drop those in the chat. We'll be starring those. We'll hit a primary question right off the bat after I say hi to some folks in the chat, and then we'll jump into your questions. So if you ask a question and we don't answer it right away, just be patient. We'll get to it eventually. Super chats, of course, always get kind of promoted to the top. We hit those first just as a way of saying thank you, but absolutely those are not required. So with that said, so we got Steve's in the house, Michael, Swiper, we got Ray, Don. Who else? We got Chris, as always, Jamie, SRW, John, Brian. Good to see you, buddy. Finster. Lots of folks in the chat, man. Jeffrey, Randy. I don't know. I'm skipping around. Domingo. Good to see you, buddy. Chad, man. All right, man. We're already got some great questions coming in. So keep those coming. So tonight's question, we're just going to start it off. So, and let me know.
Jonathan know what this question is already?
Yep.
Okay.
I already loaded him up. So here's the question. And I get this question sometimes, and I hear different people giving different answers. So I haven't prompted these guys to let them know what I think and feel. This is just our opinion. But here's
whatever he says is obviously wrong.
Exactly. Don't trust youth, man. So here's the question. Can your speakers or even your subwoofers be too big for the room? So I want you to let me know in the chat. What do you think about that question? Can your speakers or subwoofer or subwoofers be subwoofers? I love that. Be too big for the room. I'm gonna let you guys start. What do you think?
There's so many variables that go into this question.
I get it, but let's just have some fun. And I'm gonna open up a cold one. Ryan's like, are you kidding me?
No,
it's lemonade, guys. This is sparkling.
Have at it, man.
Strawberry lemonade. That's about as hard as I get, man. That's funny.
Can they be too big? I mean, if you put like stadium speakers in your room, maybe.
Okay. But let's just say, let's keep
general
it to
consensus
consumer.
for home theater speakers. I'm going to say yes if you don't have the room for them. Like if you can't position them correctly.
Okay.
Most of it's going to be down to positioning, I think, in my point of view. Maybe if you have a subwoofer that's so large that, and maybe it's not the greatest and it's slow, you're just going to run into problems with transients and things of that nature.
Say a subwoofer can be slow?
They can. I mean, if the woofer itself is slow, yeah. I mean, they absolutely can. But
just checking.
Yeah, no, they can.
All right. So you're saying
you guys can crucify me now. It's fine.
So Ryan, you're saying that if a subwoofer or if a speaker is too large and because of its like physical dimensions, it can't be put in optimal placement.
Like let's say a speaker is too large for you to put it where it needs to be for proper imaging or toe in or away from the walls or what have you. I think it can absolutely be too big.
Okay. I like that. That's a good answer. That's a different approach. And that's one thing I like about having these conversations, because there's a different perspective from it. I'm thinking from a totally different perspective, more like volume and output and that sort of thing. So I like how you kind of took the approach of physical size could determine how well that can be implemented into a living room or bedroom or even a home theater dedicated.
Chris, some subwoofers can be slow. And sound bars in the correct
use
case can be good. I guess Just speaking the truth that Chris is throwing out there.
That's right. That's right. He's giving you an amen. He's giving you a thumbs up. Jonathan, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I might have to follow up with Ryan to figure out what he's talking about with slow, because I'm not sure I agree with that.
Like if a woofer is enormous, right, and it can only play down to a certain frequency, a poorly designed subwoofer, okay? That's all I'm going to say.
Well, if you're talking about like basically it doesn't have a strong enough motor structure, and it's not returning to zero, literally, perhaps, or you're overdriving it. But if you have a subwoofer that's slower than 10 hertz, it's playing 9 hertz. And if you have it slower than 9 hertz, it's playing 8 hertz.
So there shouldn't really be if you got something slow that was too big and you didn't spend enough and it's just poorly designed and it's not working correctly.
You got to be real careful, man. You're getting an audiophile mythology. But I'll leave it alone.
I like this. No, man.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is that if the motor structure isn't large enough to keep up with it and it's not playing correctly, I guess is all I'm saying. I'm saying.
All right, if you're driving it, if it's over excursion, if it's not, if the motor is weak and it's in a ported box and it's not the right cue for that.
Just forget I said that. Just forget I said it. Okay?
Why are you backpedaling, man?
I'm gonna backpedal
one pass.
I just came home. I probably shouldn't have said that. Okay, I'm eating dinner and now I'm just getting thrown under the bus. I shouldn't have said that. You guys are absolutely right. My brain was in a different direction.
That's just funny, man.
Just ignore what I said.
All right, so here's where I would think that a speaker could be too large for a room. It's if you have, like, let's say you have a 3-way and it's a vertical tower, and you got a massive 18-inch on the bottom, and you got a 10 that's the mid, and you got a giant waveguide tweeter on the top. You've seen some of these like Titan type builds that are huge, and you put that in a little small room. It doesn't, perhaps, if you have a little small room, it doesn't have the distance that it needs in order to resolve the speakers as one. Okay. And I can give you a real pointed example. Like these 70Js that I have, these CBT 70Js have a bass module, and you can extend it. It basically has 4 woofers on it instead of, it has no more tweeters. Okay. So it extends the frequency response down to 45 hertz, and these are tuned to 65 hertz otherwise.
Right.
It only plays up, the bass extension module that's optional, it only plays up to 1,000 hertz. And so when I put those in my room, if you're sitting close to it, the top part of it is playing full range down to 65 hertz, and the bottom range part is playing 45 hertz to 1,000 hertz. Depending on where you were, if you were on this side of the room, it sounded fine. But if you were in this chair and right there, you would hear just like a mid with no highs or something if you were next to the bass part. So I think if your speaker is too large and you're too close, you could potentially run into a situation where that's not ideal. But as far as a subwoofer, I don't think you can have too big of a subwoofer so long as it's competently designed in the right box alignment and it's a good quality set. You didn't just go and buy the cheapest driver you could find from China or something and stuff in a random box.
I agree. Ignore previous moron Ryan.
I don't know, John. That's interesting that you say that because Wooly disagrees. He's like, if it destroys your tiles, then yeah.
No, that just means that the tile installation was poorly done.
Yeah.
So if you guys
can turn it down, Wooly, you can turn it down.
That's right. If you didn't catch the podcast from last week, and I shared a clip from that just earlier this week. Jonathan shared last week that he actually cranked up his subwoofer so loud.
No, Jeff cranked it up.
Don't blame Jeff, man. Like, yes, come on, absolutely. Jeff, come on, give us some more, man. You're just trying to keep your wife from like jumping on you, bro. Blaming on Jeff, throw him under the bus. But yeah, so his subwoofers actually cracked the grout between his tile and messed it up. So that's hilarious. Good stuff, man. That's funny though. So my take on it is, and again, I'm coming from output. Some people say, having 16-inch subwoofers or 15-inch subwoofers in a bedroom is way too much. And I'm okay with having larger subwoofers because the biggest thing is I'm thinking, okay, you can always back them down. You don't have to have those things cranking wide open. I would rather have too much power, too much amplification, too much SPL, and be able to back that down at a reasonable, like, not even stress level, but basically to where these things aren't even working hard.
Right.
And they're sounding good. They're sounding clean. And so with that respect, I don't think you can have too much. I mean, you look at Jonathan's setup and you've got 8 18s in your theater room. And some people look at that and go, well, my 212s shake my dishes in my kitchen. You got too much. And I'm thinking, the reality is Jonathan doesn't have those things wide open, you know?
No,
And so
you'd have grout problems.
so for Jonathan to hit single digits at solid SPL reference level, piece of cake, man. These things aren't even sweating. They're like, yeah, no big deal.
Distortion's low.
Yeah.
And multiple placements allows your frequency response to be more equitable seat to seat.
100%.
So definitely with quantity, and with size, it'd be the same sort of thing. If you had a 24-inch subwoofer in a little small room, it's going to be super clean because it's just eyelet along. No, hardly any distortion. Real clean.
So you mentioned, the larger subwoofers. We talked about that last week as well. I'll be honest, man, full transparency. When they first started introducing 21 and 23, 24, these massive subwoofers, I'm thinking, all right, guys, come on, seriously? Like, what the heck? I mean, and I'm looking at my setup going, man, I got 418s. That's more than what I could ever use in my room. It's crazy. Why would you ever need that much? Well, again, I'm looking from my perspective, and my room is 13 foot by 19 foot, 10-foot ceiling. It's not a massive room. I did a home theater tour of a gentleman, and he had a big room, and he had 4 24s. That was the first time I'd experienced that. Well, might have been the first time. I've experienced a couple of different 24s, and they were stereo integrity. And I'm going, holy cow. And I even asked him, like, do you have any butt kickers or any tactile transducers in the seats? He said, no, just my 4 subwoofers. And this is a big room. He's probably got 14, 15, 16-foot ceilings. And I think he had a 206-inch screen. So this is a big, and that's diagonal. So this is a big, massive room. So like you said, having those big, massive drivers allows them to just barely move, but still pressurize that room. I mean, imagine trying to pressurize that type of room with 415s. You're going to hear the bass, but you certainly are not going to feel the bass. And so from that perspective, so like, I think going back to Ryan, your initial thought is there's a lot of angles from this, so there's probably not a dead set idea.
And obviously my subwoofer angle was wrong.
But I think
I wasn't awake yet.
I think the misnomer or the, the claim that you can overpower a room. Well, yeah, if you turn it up too loud, but I just don't see from my perspective that having too much of subwoofers or too big of subwoofers or having big towers in a small room, that's going to, be a detriment. I mean, my son had towers with dual 10s in his 12-foot by 12-foot bedroom, and he loved it, man. He rocked them out. Now, was it the ideal situation? Would those speakers have sounded better in a bigger room? Absolutely. But would a smaller version of that speaker sound better? No, because the tweeter isn't near as quality as the RF7 2s, that he had in his bedroom. He had the RF7s, the original ones. And so that's kind of from the perspective that I'm coming from. So I think buy as good of a system as you can afford, build it over time. Same thing with subwoofers. We always encourage you guys, buy the best subwoofer you can. And if you feel that you need more, save up, buy another one just like it. If you need more, continue to go down that route instead of trying to cut corners, get something less than what you want. And again, not everybody needs an 18. Not everybody needs even a 15. I mean, if a 12 meets your needs, or dual 12s or quad 12s meets your needs in your room, provides enough SPL, enough depth, and enough output for you, then man, go for it. Rock it out. Enjoy it. If a sound bar is great, hey, I'm not going to tell you that's silly. That's your home theater. That's your setup. That's your living room. That's your bedroom. You do you enjoy it and crank it up. We're just trying to give you some good advice to help you build that out to be, the best quality that it can be and the best sound in that room. So cool thing, man. So I just thought that'd be kind of fun to kick us off tonight. So if you got questions, drop those off in the chat. We got lots of questions already. And guys, I'll be honest with you. I have not been, I've been bad. I've been talking, and probably because I'm kind of sick, I have not really read through all of these. So if you popped in and I don't say hi, forgive me.
Start here.
There you go. Oh, that's a good one. You know what? All right. Before we do that, leave it up there. One request that I would love StreamYards. The StreamYards is the platform that we do the live streams. I would love for them to be able to separate super chats and super stickers and all that and put those in one starred thing. So those kind of pop up because we have a live tab. We've got a starred tab. And I'd love like a super tab, you know, so that just make it real easy because when we got 20 or so starred items and then you've got a super chat or make it stand out, be a little bit easier. All right, let's see. Sir, do you appreciate the $4 or $5 super chat? So why do centers have 2 sets of binding posts if processors can't let you buy amp? Okay, interesting. So never understood this. Is it for by wiring only? Great question. So when you're saying, all right, so let me think this through. So typically when you have a speaker that you're wanting to buy amp, so you're going to use 2 amplifiers. Most of the time guys are going to be using external amplifiers with that. I don't know too many people that would, yeah, like you said, if you've got an AVR, you're not going to have 2 sets of center outputs, you know, one for the high frequencies, one for the low frequencies. So yeah, so you're going to need 2 separate amplifiers for that. Do you guys ever buy amp by wire in your setups? I don't.
I played with it long ago and couldn't tell any difference. And the more I read on it, I think it's another kind of audio myth that probably should die.
There are some times when you want to do it, like maybe like on the Neoliths powering their passive 15. But I don't even know then that it would make any difference.
Is it the Neolith has a passive 15 that's powered by the amplifier? It's not active. Like I thought a lot of the Martin logos were active.
It's fully passive.
Yeah. Okay.
It in the classic 9, they're passive electrostatics. The woofers in the bottom are passive; they're not active. So maybe, but even then, I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
If somebody in the chat has a good link for some actual like science on the bi-amping functionality, I'd like to see that because I've never really seen anything that proves that it's doing much.
Chris says by wire equals just by wire.
You can do it sometimes, like if your amp is underpowered, like what we were going to do last year with the benchmarks and the Neoliths is a 300 watt amplifier is not going to be enough. So you send one to the tops and one to the bottoms. That I think can be in use case, but other than that, I don't know that you're going to really get anything out of it.
Yeah. And some people claim, I mean, again, there's a lot of claims in this whole audio and whether it's 2-channel or home theater. Some people claim, man, I hear a difference in cables. Some people claim that I hear a difference when I buy amp or buy wire. I'm like Jonathan. I tried it once in my setup. I figure I got extra cables. I got the extra power. Let's just see what happens. And I just didn't hear a difference. So I went back to just regular and just jumper those, you know, high frequencies and low frequencies. But yeah, to answer your question, you're definitely going to need a external amplifier to be able to buy amp that, you know,
because all you're going to get out of an AVR if they do things and pull from multiple amps is bridging.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And so on the buy, again, I don't know much about by wire, like what that is.
By wire, you'd just be running from the same terminals on the AVR to 2 different terminals on the speaker. Doesn't really do anything.
Would that change maybe the impedance, the load for that output? Would that be like not beneficial to the amplifier or to the AVR? I'm just wondering if that can handle it. I guess it's designed to do that.
It doesn't change anything if you're running from a single set of terminals. Yeah, on the AVR to 2, like some people run 2 wires and one to the top and one to the bottom. It doesn't do probably worse for it. It probably increases the impedance.
Okay. All right. So it may not harm it. I just don't think it's going to really benefit you.
If you have like a passive crossover system that you're trying to bypass, you're just going to use active crossover from, like, let's say your AVR and you can say, I want my tweeter to play 2,000 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And I want my woofer. If you're doing it actively, then by wiring makes sense, right?
Correct.
Or even tri-way wiring if you're going to do a 3-way speaker. But if it's all like a passive crossover in there and you run it through the same crossover network, it's somebody in the chat said buy wire means buying wire.
Buying wire.
That's spot on.
that was funny, but
that's great.
That was Chris. Yeah.
So as somebody put it on a forum that I just read is that all bi-wiring does is you're moving the crossover from the bridge that's on the speaker to the amplifier. You're just moving that piece of metal.
But I think that's speaking to what we just talked about. If your speaker has a passive crossover in it, it depends on what the internal wiring of your speaker is.
I guess that's true.
If your speaker has a passive crossover in it and you're going to that same network, then it's just a joke. But if
what did you change?
If your wire from that top terminal set on your speaker is actually going to a different crossover board or directly wired to the tweeter, then okay, there might be something to it. I don't think that's the way your consumer speakers are designed. I'm going to make up a statistic out of my rear end, but I'm going to say the majority, I'm not even going to even put a number on it, but the majority of speakers you buy that have double binding posts, it's nonsense. There's not any functionality there.
It might be like more of a marketing kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, if you get into real high-end products, maybe at that point you're starting to have some legitimacy there.
Yeah.
Tested at M-Wave.
Sure, so that'd be great.
Oh, wait, right here. Matt, you said that he was asking why they offer it on a center channel speaker if the AVR doesn't typically allow it. So again, not everybody's running an AVR. Some people are running maybe an AVR out into dedicated amplifiers or a processor and using dedicated amplifiers. So if you're using more than one amplifier, then you'd be able to do that. So unless I'm missing something from that. So, but again, I haven't done much of that. I tried it once and I'm like, I just didn't, Billy says bi-amping a center might be ideal if you want to equalize the low frequency and not the high frequency. Gotcha. Okay. So cool. So definitely some different thoughts there for sure, but that's my take on it, man. Good question.
And I guess Bodie brings up a good point that you could theoretically push different volumes if they're separated. You could boost your low frequency.
Gotcha.
Using an amplifier instead of using your processor.
Yeah. But I think so to me, and again, this is my personal opinion, I just haven't experienced like any sound difference when I bi-amped. So that was just where I tried it and it didn't work for me. But hopefully that answered your question.
Here's another one.
Cool. Let me uncheck this one.
Ryan hit that on the moment it popped up.
Bam!
Boom, we got it. All right, here we go. So Gabe, appreciate the $10 super chat. So when calibrating your subs hot, which all of us do, at least on this group right here, 5 or 10 dB, 40 in Ryan's case, do I measure one sub 5 dB hot and then the other at the same, or measure both at the same time to achieve those decibels? Man, I love it. Super, super cool. So does he measure one at like 5 dB hot, measure the other one 5 dB hot, or are we talking combine those together and then we're increasing the dB on that?
I think if he's technically just trying to tell his next door neighbor, I like my subs 5 dB hot, then it should be a cumulative measure because that together is 5 dB hot.
Correct.
If he runs both 5 dB hot, he's probably going to be 7.5 dB hot or 9 dB hot or whatever it is based on his location in this room.
Yeah.
So do it to preference, man. Don't do like has to be a 5, 10, 15, or 20.
Yeah.
Must be even interval.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think and like what Jonathan is saying is that when I run like Odyssey, I'm telling you, man, I'll play content. I'm not even talking about measuring or anything. I'm just playing content and I'm like, I'm just underwhelmed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it jacks it puts my bass at really, really, I always describe it as the bass is anemic. I mean, it's just really, really weak. And so I just, like Jonathan said, I just kind of boost it up. And I found for me in my room, usually about 6 dB, maybe 7 dB works for me. I don't have to have overpowering bass in my room. But these guys, Jonathan, how hot are yours?
I like 9 for movies and 12 for music.
Okay.
That's give or take a little bit.
Yeah,
but yes.
On average. Okay. And Ryan, honestly, like, what are you running?
No comment.
I know we bust your chops every time.
I think I'm probably realistically around 15 to 20.
Wow. So you are really 20 dB hot. No wonder I put the dang earplugs in and walked out.
No, so my sub experience is a lot different than it was when you were here last time. It's very much tamed, I guess.
Contained?
I was going to say contained, but it's not. It's tamed. as far as tightness, and it's just a better experience.
Okay. Dude, I'm excited to hear, because here's the thing, y'all spend a lot of time in calibration, way more than I do. And the biggest reason I don't is because I'm constantly swapping stuff out in my room. So one day, guys,
all I hear is excuses.
No, one day I'm gonna have a channel so big that I can enjoy my theater room like it is.
Lies!
No, I'm dead serious.
The excuses are just going to change.
This is a visionary way. I mean, we're maybe 5-10 years down the road. I don't know where this
5-10 days,
5-10 years down the road. But one day I would love to have like a studio to where I can review stuff, leave my stuff alone. I mean, dude, if I took you in there, you would just laugh, because I've got trash. I say trash. These are nice equipment.
You should have seen my theater over the past
boxes everywhere. Yeah, but you were upgrading. So I'm playing with somebody else's stuff most of the time.
I mean, you don't have to send it back. It could be your stuff.
Sometimes it does, but it's a lot of work, especially the thing. Well, all right. So I got a Pioneer AVR. So I've got to take my processor out, put the AVR in there, do some calibration with it.
I just need to send you some speakers so that you can have a review setup. So you're not.
You got to have a second room. That sounds.
That's Johnson's right. The second room is the answer. It's not.
Do you have another room that you could use?
Nah.
Do it in your office.
Just the kitchen, man.
Daughter's bedroom.
Yeah. Doug is in the kitchen.
Hey, love, you can go to sleep here in just a minute. Dad's calibrating.
Yeah, 12 by 12 will be a little tight. So, but Gabe, man, I hope that answers your question. So each one of us run a little bit different, but it's after, like, when both of those are dialed in. So like I'm using a mini DSP. Jonathan, are you using a mini DSP for your subs?
Just for tactile.
Okay.
Just for the tactile.
Okay, so
the AVR only for the subs.
So he's measuring all of them across the board, and together collectively, his are, whatever. Good question, man. Appreciate it. And Ryan, if you don't mind, I don't know where you grabbed that one from. Oh, it wasn't in the starred one. Okay, so we're good. I just wanted to unstar that one.
I felt it was pertinent, so I threw it up there.
Yeah, there you go. Hot subs defined as 5 to 20 dB from 80 to 20 hertz or lower than 20.
I think most all of us can get down into single digits.
Yeah.
So that's all the way down into single digits.
Yeah, because ideally, think about this. Ideally, you want your frequency response flat. But I've got a house curve, so the bass is higher than the. So there you go. It's hard to do this thing backwards. It is hard to do this backwards. You look kind of funny though.
So the human ear responds differently for higher and lower frequencies.
When your bass is like this,
when it's like this. What you
guys got to stop.
What you want is, like, as you're starting down here, and then you're going to want it to start coming up and up and up and up and up and up, because how we perceive the lower frequencies, we need them louder so that we perceive them as the same volume.
Yeah.
So I think all of our, if we actually went in and measured, that's how all of ours would be, I think.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Jonathan, is that how yours is? Mine's more flat. Mine's drops off more aggressively up top.
I definitely don't like a flat frequency response, like totally flat. So
we're all going to have a little bit of difference there, probably. I've been in a lot of different rooms. One of our guys that we used to hang out with a lot named Austin, he used to have, he called it the ULF tard. Probably shouldn't say that, but ULF tard curve. And the thing was like this. Like if this is 0 hertz, it was like shooting up to the moon at the lowest frequencies. And he had 16, 18, so he could do it.
Right.
In this little.
So is it more of a curve like that?
So this is 80 hertz and this is 10 hertz, and the thing just rose the whole time.
Okay,
I personally think that was kind of insane, because you play regular music and it was like, you're like bouncing around in your chair for things that don't normally sound like that. So it was playing to kind of a carnival thing, and I wouldn't really. That's not for me. I probably a little bit of a rise, or even just kind of flat. Now here's something to discuss that's worth talking about.
Okay.
As you elevate your subs, let's say you were, let's just put mine. I like 9. Let's just say 9 for movies. As you elevate your subs, you're increasing your crossover point, because if this is your regular, I'm doing the same thing Ryan's doing.
It's hard.
If your frequency response is here, and your subwoofer is now 9 dB hot, that's like, say your crossover is at 80 hertz. At 80 hertz, it's jumped up. as you raise this, think about where the intersection point comes between your speakers and your subs. As you raise your subs, that intersection point is moving this way, and it's going higher and higher.
Interesting.
So if you think you have 80 hertz crossover and you boost 10 dB on the subs, your crossover point's more like, I don't know what it would be depending on your roll off, but it'd be like maybe 120 or 150. You're moving that crossover point higher as you raise your subs. So that's something to keep in mind. If you boost them 20 dB, your crossover point's shooting way high. So you'll start getting voices in the bass and the subwoofers and that kind of stuff is kind of what I'm.
So would you have to change your crossover in your?
You could lower your crossover to kind of counter that if you want.
Okay.
But I think a lot of
kind of like it. Some people kind of like it.
A lot of the recommendation is to try and equate this into your calibration, or if you're running room correction. Right. So you try and equate your room curve or your house curve and then let the room correction fix that so that it has this nice, well, this way. No, this way.
Good luck.
God damn it.
We'll believe that one out.
Can't figure out which way to go. But a lot of people that I've seen recommend doing it in your calibration process with room correction.
Yeah.
I don't try to raise my lower end, and I probably can't, to be quite honest, because I'll run out of amplifier power and subwoofers at a certain point. If I tried to say, hey, I want my subs 9 dB hot from 120 hertz to 3 hertz or something, my low end at the say below 15-20 hertz is not going to keep up. It's just not. You need a pile of subwoofers, more than 8. So as I raise my volume to reference volume with my subs 9 dB hot, my farthest left side of the graph is going to be trailing off. And this isn't a failure in my system. This is every system that's going to be doing that. You need a lot of firepower to boost that low end so much because there's so much excursion required and so much surface area required. And it'll just do it naturally. It won't, as you take a subwoofer to its limits, it will start ignoring the EQ that you supply and will start reverting to its natural frequency response, which on a sealed sub is like 18 dB roll off per octave. So like I take my sealed subs that are EQ'd nice and flat, I max them out. Now my subwoofer response looks like it does with just a regular sealed enclosure without the EQ applied. That's what I'm trying to say with sealed. So like this question has a couple little caveats, right? Because if I have a nice fluid frequency response, I'm showing, hey, I'm flat to 7 hertz. At what volume am I flat to 7 hertz?
Right.
I'm flat to 7 hertz at 100 dB, but not at 115 dB.
This is why I'm buying another 4,000.
Yeah, I won't have enough firepower for that.
Is that it? Are you really?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Where are you going to put that one?
Wow. In the back?
I think the RS1s are going to become near fields.
So wait a minute. You got... I can't. I'm
confused. So you got the.
So I have that custom RS1 that's sitting as a near field right now. One thing that bothers me is I only have one 18-inch driver, so it's only the center seat that's getting it.
Okay, right.
So, and the other problem is the cabinet's not really a tuned cabinet, so the sub response is just kind of like this in that cabinet. So the RS1s I think are going to get moved up and become near fields, and then I'm going to get 2 4000 UL TLs, and they're going to go in their place. So I'll have 4 4000s, one in each corner, and then the RS1s will become near fields.
Okay, so will they? Are you?
Michael's looking at me like,
no,
what is wrong with this guy? What is wrong with this man? Am I going to die if I come in this goes through?
So Richard's asking, are you going to put holes in the side?
No. They're going to sit where my RS. So right now, the RS1s in the corners are in the room.
Yeah, I haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, they're in the room.
Okay.
They're in the back. They're back right next to where my back channels are. And then the 4000s will take their place.
Okay. And then move those up front for near field. RS1s. Okay. Nice. Yeah, that's gonna be cool.
Then the dream is to get a 24 from SI to use as ultra low frequency.
Yeah.
So you and Sheldon are going to be in competition because he did end up getting 8 more. So he'll have 16 18s in a room that's smaller.
So see what Ryan's really trying to do. He's just encouraging you guys.
I'm trying to figure out how much base excursion it takes to delaminate my real wood floors instead of tile.
Oh man!
And just to see it kind of start going like this.
Yeah,
that's funny. He's just trying to impress you guys that are in VIP Gold, VIP Platinum. That's
no. I have probably
awesome,
something's wrong with me mentally. I don't know.
Yeah, but we have fun though. And here's the thing. I mean, you're enjoying the journey, you know?
Oh yeah. It's not fun unless I'm breaking my back carrying something down my stairs.
Yeah, and those 300-pound subwoofers. That's no
Probably
joke.
should have thought about installing an elevator.
That is no joke. All right, let's jump to another question here. So, Chatman, I'm gonna throw this to Ryan because I really don't know. How long does it typically take for a custom Seymour screen to ship?
That's going to depend on if they have everything in stock. Usually it's a couple weeks, but if they don't have everything in stock, it can be delayed. I know they've been running into some issues with some screen material, so things have been a little bit slow. But if you're interested in anything, just shoot me a message and we can get that figured out for you.
Cool deal, man. Eric says, Ryan, what's the difference between the Hypex and Purify Buckeye amps, and which one is better?
They use different amp modules. As of right now, I think the Purifies technically have a better distortion rating or synad rating. I don't think you're going to be able to hear it. The Purifies, I think, are the main benefit for the Purifies right now is that they're much better at driving hard to drive speakers, which is why I use them. My homeowner's insurance increases the more subs you have.
I just saw that. That's hilarious, bro. That's perfect, John. I love it, man.
Don't tell State Farm.
You guys cracking me up, man. This is fun. That's the thing, man. I love having fun. Jerry says, is there a huge difference between the RF7 Mark 1? So that was the original Klipsch RF7s probably about 15 years ago to the new Mark 3, the RF7 version 3. And absolutely. I've actually got a video. Short version of that is Klipsch was my first product that I ever reviewed on the channel. I had the RF7, I had the RF7 II, and Klipsch had just announced that they were coming out with an RF7 version 3. So I had been a moderator in Klipsch for many years. I'd owned, I think
you say moderator in Klipsch, you mean the Klipsch forums? In
the Klipsch forum, sorry about that. So yeah, in their forum, I was real big there. Forum was where it was at, kind of like Jonathan in the AVS forum. I'm there all day, every waking minute. I'm responding to comments. I'm helping people out. I'm answering questions. I'm sharing my experiences. Every time I bought a new Klipsch speaker, I'd put photos of it and I'd talk about my experience with it, what I heard. So I reached out to Klipsch and I said, I know everybody in the forum is going to want to know, how does 3 compare to 2 compared to 1? And I said, I'd love to make some cool videos on that. And, I love your product. I've got La Scalas in the theater room. I've got the 7.1s, the 7.2s. I've got the Klipsch speakers for my computer, and they're kind of all over the place. And so I was asking them, do you think that would be, I'd love to review it. So they sent me the RF7 IIIs, and I made about 15 videos on the channel. Now these are, I'm just going to call it like it is. They're trash videos as far as video production quality, man. They are garbage. Audio is probably terrible. Lighting's terrible. Didn't have
all right,
lighting.
quick, everybody, go watch them.
It's terrible. But I do have some videos on the differences between that. And the short version is with each series, the biggest thing I noticed, the subwoofers or the 10-inch drivers, I didn't hear any more bass out of the RF7 IIIs. Because they had this, what they call a bifurcated, is it bifurcated? Is that how you say it? It's basically where they make a separate compartment internally for each subwoofer or each driver, each woofer. So they, it's isolated from the other one.
Call that sealed. I don't know what bifurcated is about.
Yeah, that's what they call it. I'm pretty sure it's anyway, correct me in the chat if I'm using the wrong phrase, but I'm pretty sure it's bifurcated. It's probably not. It's by something, but so I didn't hear any difference in the woofers. Okay, the bass, they all slam dual 12 or dual 10s. They're phenomenal. What I did hear very significantly each time.
No, you're right. Bifurcated, divided into 2 branches or forks.
Yeah, so it's just 2 compartments in there for the woofers.
Well, I never heard of that word. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, well, good. We learned something new today. Hey, Youth Man taught somebody something, and I didn't teach y'all nothing, man. Klipsch shared that word with me. I just happened to remember it. But where you'll notice the biggest difference is in that top end. One of the biggest complaints over the years that people that don't like Klipsch is because the highs are just too piercing and they're too bright, too in your face. So when they came out with the 7.2, that top end was tamed a little bit. Okay. when they came out with the 7.3, it was even more refined on the top end. And so to me, I really like the 3. The 2 is definitely a little bit more forward, but the 3 isn't laid back by any means. I mean, the RF83s, I had those are laid back. I mean, you can crank them up as loud as you want. You're never going to get ear fatigue from those at all. They're just, they almost didn't even sound like Klipsch. They didn't have their signature. And that might be why they only introduced those one time and they're like, that didn't work out. So that'd be my guess. But as far as the differences, I think that's the biggest thing. And I've got some videos just showing size differences. There are some differences there. But I had those in my living room. Actually, let me pull it up real quick. I've got a photo here, theater. And let's pull up the living room. There you go. I'll even show you. Oh, here we go. Oh, yeah. That's a cool photo too, man. Let me share my screen. So we pulled these out in the living room. I even invited some guys over and we played with those. So there they are. So in the middle are the RF7s, the original with the black dust cap. Then a little bit taller are the RF7-2s. And then on the outside is the RF7 version 3s or the Mark 3s. And you can even see, look at the horn on each one of those. They changed. So by the time you got to the RF7 III, that horn got bigger, but they also changed like the pattern of it. And it was no longer plastic. The original was plastic. And so a lot of guys were hearing these resonances in the top end. And so they would actually take that horn out and add kind of like Dynamat to the back of it to deaden it so that it wouldn't resonate. And so again, Klipsch was just listening to consumers and they're like, you know what if we redesign this horn? And so that horn is made out of rubber.
Look at the change in just quality of the speaker as it increases from the front finish to the side finishes to what the horn looks like. Big differences there.
Yeah. So I love the 3s. I still have them in my living room set up. I rock them. They're phenomenal. So if you ever get a chance to get a pair, I definitely recommend them. So, but hopefully that answered your question, sir.
That was a good answer.
Thanks,
Michael.
Man. Well, here's the thing. I never like sharing stuff that I don't have experience with. You know, a lot of guys will say, how does this sound with this? I don't know. I haven't listened to that.
Sure.
I don't want to guess. I don't want to tell you what somebody else heard. I want to tell you what I've experienced. And so I've had a lot of experience. I think I have 83 videos on my channel that are of Klipsch. And so I've had quite a few.
Klipsch gospel according to you.
That's hilarious, man. Too funny, man. All right, cool. Let's keep going. So Finster, I have an old Denon 2200 receiver. Can I use it as an amp to power bass shakers? Set up now as a Denon 3700H to mini DSP to 2 subs. Would use he would use the third mini DSP output to the Denon 2200 to the shakers. So you guys both have tactile transducers in your setup. So you got a lot more experience with that. So I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, it depends on, and Ryan, if you have an answer, I can let you speak, but effectively it depends on what kind of shakers you're using, because they stretch the gamut as far as how many watts you need and how much, what the impedance load is and everything else. Like if you get a little Aura shaker, they only need about 50 watts to do their thing. You got a butt kicker advance, you're going to need like 300 watts, and that Denon's not going to cut it. And, you know, a Clark synthesis might be 150 watts or something. So it really depends on what shakers you're talking about. Could you get away with it? Yeah. If you have a lightweight shaker and it doesn't require a lot of power, you could. If you got something that's got a big heavy piston that you're moving, or you're trying to make the couch jump up and down, you better do a little bit more power than that Denon.
Gotcha.
That's what I would say. Okay. I think you're adding too much complexity to your signal chain, though. You're probably better off getting a cheaper amp, like a Behringer A800 or something, which if you need one, let me know.
I love how you just slid that right in there. I got some.
Because I do have some used ones that need to go. But I think it's a better situation to buy an amplifier that is going to be a simpler solution. And not only that, if you changed it and got bigger shakers or wanted to go a different route, well, that amplifier is good in all different kinds of situations. And you may be running into like delay issues with that dead end. There's all different kinds of things that can go in there.
Cool thing.
I'd simplify it with an amplifier.
I agree with that, Ryan. Those amps he's talking about, the little Behringer A800 would be a good little amp. You can also, if you feel comfortable buying used on eBay, you can always pick up an old Crown XLS 402 or 802 for next to nothing, and those are workhorses.
Any old pro amp.
Yeah.
I like it, man. Good advice. Appreciate the question there, Finster. Mena Cordero, appreciate the $5 super chat. He says, I'm a newbie. What happens with the power unused in an amplifier? Does it get distributed, allocated among the other channels used? So I'm assuming what you're saying is, let's say you have a 9-channel AVR. Yeah, I want to see if he's talking amplifier or if he's talking, I guess it could go both ways. So he might be talking an amplifier, like separate amplifier, or he may be talking about AVR. But let's say you've got more channels available in the amp or AVR than what amount of speakers you have connected. So if you got 9 channels and you're only using 7, what happens to that extra power?
It only takes the power that it's going to use. So if you hook up a watt meter to your AVR and you're running something at low volume, your AVR might be rated for 100 watts per channel, but you're probably only drawing like 15 watts or something from the AVR, because it only draws what it needs plus the overhead for the conversion. At any rate, it's not uncommon for an AVR to present a little bit more power than it's rated for if you're only driving like 2 channels, and it's very common for an AVR to present much less power than it's rated for if you're driving all the channels. So this is another it depends type answer. You're not, as you get into higher tier AVRs, they'll have what's called monoblock amps in them, like the higher tier Denons, for instance. They'll have 150 watt monoblock amp times however many channels you have, whether it's 11, 13, or 15. Each one of those monoblock amps is going to be pretty much limited to like 150 watts, maybe a tiny bit more, but not very much more, because that's what it's made to do. And the capacitance of the entire AVR is going to be shared. So I think Denon's saying, for instance, in their 15-channel one, that they're going to allow 9 channels driven at 70% is what they're quoting right now.
Oh, wow.
According to Gene.
Okay.
Now, if you step to, like, I had a whole 100-pound Sherborne amp. It was 7 channels, and it was rated at 350 watts per channel. But if you only did 2, that capacitance was all shared. If you only driving 2 channels, that beast of an amplifier would put out almost 700 watts per channel times 2.
Right.
So really, that it depends answer. It's really depends on what kind of AVR amplifier we're talking about.
Sure. So sometimes it can be shared, but sometimes just on the way it's configured and wired internally, you may only have access to what it's given per channel.
Right.
But like you said, the biggest thing is you're like, rarely will you ever be, I don't even know if you physically can draw, like if you got a 9-channel amplifier or AVR, and it's 140 watts a channel, it's going to be wide open at each channel,
Right.
Your surrounds may not be doing anything, or maybe your Atmos might be just barely, just coasting along while the fronts are going nuts, so great question, man. No question is a dumb question, except the one that isn't asked. Let's see. Let me uncheck that one. Cool. Frank V says, what are the primary benefits of using an anamorphic lens with a projector? Great question, man. So for those of you that don't know, and I'm going to really dumb it down, and y'all can add some more context to this, but what he's asking is, some people use, like in my case, I have a projector, and some people will add an anamorphic lens, which is a lens that goes in front of your projector lens. The benefits that I have heard from guys that have owned this is you do get more output, light output. So your projector is going to appear brighter on your screen. That's debatable on how much that is. Some people have claimed 30%, 25%, 20%. I don't know what the actual number it is, and it might depend on the type or quality of the anamorphic lens that you have. So that's one of the benefits, is going to be greater light output. So the other one would probably be the ability to utilize like your full scope image. So in my setup, I use what they call lens memory. So my JVC, when I have gray bars on top and bottom, I zoom in. I don't know if you technically call it zoom in or zoom out, but basically I zoom until the edges of the image are left and right of my scope screen. And so now the gray bars are above and below my screen. Problem is I'm kind of wasting or not utilizing the full resolution because I've got gray bars on top and bottom. But maybe you guys can kind of, do y'all understand how that physically works and makes the image, utilize the full pixels on that?
Yeah, you're manipulating the light path. So the lens is doing what your camera lens is effectively doing, like if you had a wide angle lens or what have you. So you're taking, like if you had a native 4K panel projector and you put an anamorphic lens in front of it, you're changing the light path of where that light is going to go, normally coming out of the projector lens, and moving it into more of a traditional cinemascope.
Like shape
or aspect ratio.
Okay.
So the reason you would do that is because if you don't, and let's say you're on a cinemascope screen, you've got a native 4K projector, in order to fill that cinemascope screen, you have to zoom to the width, and then you're going to have overscan off the top and bottom of the projector. Now, you can either blank this or whatever you're doing, but you can't recover that part of the panel being the light or the part of the projector that is sending things out. So you're losing light and you're losing resolution. The anamorphic lens is going to give that back to you by manipulating the light path so that you can see it on the screen. However, the downside to an anamorphic lens, and this is what a lot of people don't talk about, is you have barrel distortion and a lot of times a pincushion effect from the light being manipulated. So because the light path is being changed, the anamorphic lens is going to endow a certain amount of distortion into the image. Whether or not how noticeable that is to you is up to you and can be subjective, but to me, it's a lot. As far as how much light you lose, it's dependent. Well, it's not really dependent. It's math, effectively figuring out how much the panel is going off the projector screen, and you can figure out how much light you're losing. However, know that the projector isn't uniform in light all the way across the panel, so you may or may not be losing more or less depending on what's going on. But you're effectively losing a percentage based on how much of the panel percentage is not being used to light the screen.
Yeah. So I use what they call I always call it the poor man's anamorphic setup. So it's the internal zoom.
That's what most people do.
Yeah. So if you can go, I mean, I think there's trade-offs. So maybe just do some research on the benefits of that. I don't think either one is like, and again, some people are going to use a Mad VR to be able to manipulate that image.
Well, the Mad VR is able to fix the software where you don't have to shift between like your 16:9 in scope views. So to use this and put this in perspective, say you're in poor man's anamorphic lens situation where you're using lens shift and zoom in order to fix the image. What he's talking about is if you're zoomed to fit using a 4K panel, so 3840 by 2160, and you're zoomed to fit a CinemaScope screen, which theoretically you need a 5120 by 2160 panel in order to cover, which some projectors do, like Barco in their CS line. You can utilize that. If you use a 4K panel to light a CinemaScope screen, well, you now have overscan on the top and bottom. So if you put a 16:9 image onto that screen, you're going to overscan it. It's going to go off the top and bottom. So the reason he's saying you need to zoom and use lens memory is because you have to zoom in so that you're not overscanning that image off the top and bottom. Now, if you were to then switch back and forth between 16:9 and CinemaScope, well, the projector's lens memory isn't fast enough to be able to do that in real time.
Correct.
So now you have a major problem of which negative part do you apply? Do I overscan the 16:9 image and have 235 correct? Or do I zoom the 16:9 image so it fits on the screen, but now I've got black bars on my 235? So in that sense, Envy is able to fix that by doing constant fit aspect ratio management, but you can't fix physics through software. So I can't fix bending light like the lens can and redirecting it onto screen
Right.
through Envy, like an anamorphic lens can.
Yeah. Yeah. So Adam says kind of what you mentioned earlier. JVC has digital masking to get rid of the bars on your wall, but you don't recover that lost light output.
Yep.
So
that's gone.
Yeah,
unless
man.
you can reroute
I like Ryan's answer, but I want to add one little thing that kind of takes a while for novices to understand, and I think this is the part that maybe we need to make more clear.
Okay.
The black bars, there's LCD panel at the top and the bottom of your projector screen that isn't being used if you have black bars. Like there's no light output. There's no image being portrayed there.
Well, there's light output. It's
just
black.
not intentionally active, right? It's just as black as it can be.
Yeah.
If you're using an anamorphic lens, your projector switches it so it stretches the image, and the anamorphic lens reverts that stretch back to a normal look with the barrel distortion that Ryan's talking about. That's part of the whole thing.
Right.
But now your entire lens is lit up. So where the black was on the top and the bottom, now there's actual image there, which is light output that lens is able to recover. Otherwise, and that doesn't counter anything Ryan said. I'm just hoping to help.
No, I think that's important.
That's right, because in the JVC there is an option in there that says, if you're using an anamorphic lens, so when you switch that stretches it, and then the physical lens that goes in front of it kind of fixes that.
Right. Okay. It looks weird if you put it in anamorphic mode without an anamorphic lens.
Sony calls it V-stretch.
Yeah. All right. Now, so a negative to anamorphic lens, we should talk about that a little bit. The barrel distortion he talked about, kind of a pin cushion effect, can be part of it.
Is that where it gets soft around the edges?
Yes. And if you had like an Excel document or something up from a PC desktop perspective, the text would not look nearly as clean as kind of an over zoom, which is what you're talking about.
Right.
In a movie content with media, it probably doesn't matter as long as your lens is clean. But you ultimately, you got a little more glass to go through, so you can have the dust issues, and it's not a perfect system. And the people I know that have had anamorphic lenses in the past, most seem to be kind of moving away from them.
Interesting.
That's not to say you can't make it work, but the people I know that have used anamorphic lenses are kind of just saying over zoom is good enough.
Yeah. The light output that you gain isn't necessarily enough to fix the problems that they introduce.
Interesting. And part of it too, though, I mean, you got to realize, and the reason why I didn't go that route was the lens cost as much as my projector.
Sometimes
I'm thinking, well, again, I was using probably like a $3,000 projector. That was a Panasonic. I had the Epson 5040, and I'm looking at these lenses, and they're either that price or more, and I'm going, holy cow! But not only do you have the cost of that, then you have to figure out, how are you going to get it in front of there? Because you don't always use it in front of there. There are times that, my understanding, you're going to need to move that lens out of the way. So you either manually are moving and changing.
I think the sleds
settings.
have kind of moved away.
Have an electric
I don't think
sled.
a lot of them are using that anymore.
Right, but that's expensive.
You're right.
And then that's another thing. So definitely, I think there's some challenges with that. Not to say you shouldn't go that route, but definitely do some homework. But
well, your MSRP now on like Panamorph is $10,000.
Ooh.
Okay. For what's worth, I see a lot of anamorphic lenses in the classified on AVS forum. So you might, if you're okay with used, you might
look
check that
at
out.
a used one. Yeah, I like that. Get a youth man deal on an anamorphic lens if you want to go that direction.
But I don't know. I don't really think that the trouble that they introduce or the problems that they solve is worth the trouble that they bring with them, in my opinion.
Cool, man. Great question. Appreciate that, Frank. Aziz says, have a question for Youth Man. How's the highs on Martin Logan 60X Ti compared to the Klipsch reference Premier RP280F? Okay, so number one, like I mentioned earlier, I have not reviewed the RP280F. I did review the RP8060FA, so I'm not sure how much different. I'm not familiar with that model number, the 280F, but so I can't do a direct comparison. What I can tell you is I absolutely loved the Martin Logan 60 XTIs. Phenomenal speaker. They're a 3-way versus the RP280F, I believe, is a 2-way. I want to say both of them have 8-inch drivers, but the 60 XTI, didn't that have 3 8s? If I remember, it had 2. Okay, so both of them have dual 8s. So bass is going to probably be pretty similar, but the finish on those 60 XTIs, man, is gorgeous. And of course, Martin Logan's got their brand new series, so that just came out. And so again, I don't think I could really adequately tell you what the differences are. And the other thing too is I don't like to compare something that I review, let's say 2 months ago, and try to compare that to something that I just got in today. So to me, unless I can do some A/B switching, like fast back and forth in the same room, and even that has challenges because there's not an easy way to set that up to where they're in the same position. So think about this. Let's say, like in that picture I showed earlier, I've got 3 sets of speakers. Well, the ones on the inside are going to have a certain just native sound signature, and it's going to sound different than the ones that are on the out or the middle. It's going to have a different. So I may be collapsing sound stage. I may be. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, your room interactions matter a whole lot when you're doing a comparison.
So that's hard too. So that's hard for me. I'll be honest. I'm not one of those guys that claims that I can tell you, yeah, the Martin Logan 60X Ti, they're going to have this and they're going to do this, and the Premiere, they're going to do it this way. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer, to be honest with you. So, but I haven't done that A/B in my own setup in fast switching to be able to compare those two. So my bad, my man.
So Damon says 400 versus 600 is a silly comparison.
Okay.
And that may be true if you're doing tower to tower, but that tweeter that's in the Martin Logans that sets them apart is in even their lower offerings. Then even if you move down to the normal motion tweeter away from the XT, it's still very, very similar. So I think it's just utilizing these as a characteristic comparison. And if you even if you put a bookshelf against that 280F and had a subwoofer to be able to fill out that low end, I still think the Martin Logan's going to come out on top substantially.
Well, one thing I want to see real quick is that Klipsch 280F. Is that a part of the reference Premiere? Yes. Okay, it is. So, because the thing is, Klipsch got real weird in their naming structure, and so they had some like the, I don't know, like the 820F, and it was part of the reference series, but really it was their entry level speaker. And I'm not a big fan of the entry level Klipsch. I like the reference Premiere, and of course I like the RF7 version 3, 2, and 1, the original RF7 version series. So I just want to make sure that was a reference Premiere, because that to me is a different, like, it's a different speaker than their ones that they sell at Best Buy. And sadly, a lot of people base their opinion off Klipsch by what they heard at Best Buy from their cheapest budget friendly ones that are sitting out on a dang end cap, you know, that are 2 feet apart, and they're going, these sound like trash. Well, of course they sound like trash. They're in a horrible environment, but they're entry level speakers too. So I wanted to check that out. So Bryant says, good evening. How's everyone today? We are doing fabulous, my man. Hope you are too. So my question is, what do each of you think about Optima projectors in general, and specifically, should I buy an Optima UHD 38X for a first projector? Great question, man. So I haven't had any experience as far as personally reviewing any Optima, but I think, Jonathan, you've had some, right?
No, the only one I know of recently was Ryan's. Ryan has that Optima that we compared at the 2022
Sold my
shootout.
NZ9 and I'm using that Optima 50X.
I don't recommend any Optima after seeing that thing, but then I haven't seen the 38X.
It wasn't super impressive, to be honest.
No, they're light cannons. I think if you do gaming, it gets you some gaming features for relatively cheap if you want a really big screen. Outside of that, my recommendation is go to used Epson.
Bryant, let us know in the chat, what is your budget?
Yeah,
because if you've got, like, say, what, maybe $1,500, could he get an Epson 50?
Used Epson or a used, like,
maybe
less than that, or 500,
$900 probably for a a 5040 UB, which would just destroy that Optima. I mean, just destroy it. Based on what we saw on that. What's the model that you have for your Optima, Ryan? That you were
50X.
Okay, 50X. So it's probably better than 38X. No way.
and it was trash.
Run
We
away
weren't
from that
impressed.
38X.
It had light coming out of the vents.
I remember that.
It was
I
really,
remember
we were
that.
looking up at the ceiling and there's light coming
Like,
up on
where's
the
that
ceiling.
coming from? We're looking at the projector, like it's got a hole in there.
Oh,
I do remember
I mean,
that.
we use it. It's awesome for using it. We use it on our back patio. I mean, if you can get them for
That's very
cheap,
bright.
they're great because they're light cannons. But if you're doing this for like $1,000 to $1,500, and I don't know what those things are priced at new, my recommendation is a used Epson, like a 50-40, 50-50, something like that, or a 3-generation or 4-generation old JVC if your screen's small enough, because they're not huge on light output. And that would be probably the directions that I would go. But the budget king is the Epson 50-40.
Yeah. And that's a great look.
We should have a picture. Anytime Optima comes up, you should just post that green light firing out the front of that vent.
That's that's hilarious, man.
Go back and watch that video. Whoever asked that question, go back and watch that Youth Man video from.
Yeah, if you look at projector shoot, if you search YouTube for Youth Man projector shootout, you'll see. I don't know if we talked about it in that.
Oh, we did. There was even a little section where we were teasing it because we were like, "What in the world's happening here? How did the engineering team pass this?"
Well, that and the lens shift is really weird. How they do it, it's super bizarre.
Okay, so here we go, guys. So Bryant has some. Appreciate you adding some additional context. He can spend up to $4,500.
No, do not buy an Optima.
So that's a good budget, man. You can get. Can he get the 6050 for that?
Oh yeah,
LS 12,000.
He could get that
LS 12,000. Oh wow, so you can get into laser for that. Holy cow!
But if he doesn't, maybe if he's looking at Optima, maybe he doesn't want to spend his full.
Right, but the reality, there's a lot of other options besides the Optima.
Well, one thing I can tell you is if you buy an Optima, you're not getting that money back out of it. It's gone.
I wonder what the used market would look like for those, so he could just try one and see what he thinks. Because
I mean, you could buy it from Amazon.
Really, guys, we're all kind of spoiled. If you're on your first projector and this is your home theater, you'd be like, "Wow, this is awesome!
This is cool.
A huge picture."
I mean, that's a great point, Jonathan. That's an excellent point.
But then when you see another projector, and you're like, "Oh."
I think the thing is though, I mean, like my first projector was about $3,200. It was a Panasonic AE 3000U. And then I upgraded to the 4000U, and then I upgraded, or Panasonic said, "Hey, we're not making anymore in the home theater space." And so they stopped making them. And so then I moved to the Epson route, went with a 5040. Man, I mean, $4,500. Yeah, you can get a nice projector. I think so. What was he saying? He said, "I really want to save towards a Sony 5000 ES. So this would be temporary for," dude, I think you could rock a $4,500 projector for quite a while, for many years, and really enjoy it. So do your research. Definitely. I mean, reach out to Ryan. He can definitely give you some more insight on that.
Ryan, can you sell Sony?
Yep.
Well, you should talk to Ryan about that anyway, then.
Yeah, just check with him. He can give you some pricing, some availability, and give you some thoughts on that, some things to consider. But
you buy that Optima, man, as a like a halfway point to get your final projector. That's just a waste of money. Honestly.
I think if you said, "Hey, I only got $500," okay, you probably might end up with an Optima, and you'd be fine with that. But if you got $4,500, you could get a really nice. See, Ike is saying, man, a Sony 300, 325 ES in your budget. There's definitely a lot of other options for you. So
horses for courses. Ryan mentioned it. You need a light cannon for outside where you don't care about black level. You're watching at dusk or something, All right. That makes sense. And a dedicated home theater with light control? No way.
Awesome. So Chadman picked up a LS 12,000 from Ryan. Awesome, man. Congratulations. We saw that at M-Wave last year, man. It's a beautiful projector. I really was impressed. Fast. What's going on, buddy? He is local to me, man. He's in Sarasota. I'm just over here in Plant City, just east of you. All right. Let me go back up here. There was something I was wanting to. Let me look something real quick because I think somebody mentioned it in the chat before we go that next part. Okay, here's what it was. Matt, I want to address your question real quick. So you mentioned, he said stagger the speakers. So basically what he's saying is instead of doing, say, speaker 1 here in the middle, let's see if we can do it. Speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3, you stagger them. So it'd be like, speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3, and then here would be speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3. Here's the tricky thing. You're still moving. and that's still in a different location in your room. And ideally, if you listen to one set of speakers, say speaker 1, you're going to be here. So to listen to speaker set 2, you really need to kind of probably move your body over, you know, a seat position. And then to listen to speaker 3, you need to move. You see what I'm saying? So you're changing the position of your body, and you're also changing. So the only way that you can really do this, I think, effectively is what we're going to try to do at M-Wave, and that is have kind of like a carousel, you know, to where you're able to listen to a speaker in the same location. It doesn't change. And I think, Ryan, you may even be doing a single speaker in mono. But
what are you guys doing, a carousel? How are you getting that?
I haven't figured
you're
that
going to
out
be
yet.
back. I think you're going to be back there turning it.
Yeah, that's a big promise.
It's a huge project, and I'm going to say I'm going to do it. But
I said we're trying this, man.
Hey, Ryan's building the big, huge lazy Susan to put all the speakers on it.
He's looking on Amazon. He's like, they don't make one that's 6 foot or 12 foot.
Model trains, guys. Model trains.
Man.
There's just gonna be a lot of volunteers picking up a speaker, running around, putting it on the tape.
Oh, I totally interrupted you. I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
Fine. No, that's perfect. No, but like I said, even that, Matt, and that's the hard thing. I mean, sometimes there's not an actual ideal situation, and you do the best that you can with that. But that's definitely one way to do it, is kind of stagger those. But even that's not perfect.
And you're still going to have your room wall interactions, which
that's
in a small room,
yeah, because you're moving,
really makes a difference. Yeah.
Well, and your other issue is that it changes imaging. It changes, as Jonathan said, room interaction. It changes all kinds of stuff. So the ideal way to do this is doing it mono. If you're doing speaker comparisons, because then you're not dealing with imaging, you're not dealing with distance, you're not dealing. Well, the other thing that plays into this is toe angle and all kinds of stuff, and there's a bajillion different variables that come into this, which is why mono is typically the recommended way to do it. And why I am, for some reason, deciding that I'm going to do a carousel. Whether that's going to be the end of me, I don't know. But that's what,
and Matt, I don't fault you there. I mean, this is how they set it up in high-end audio shops, but I'm just telling you, it's not perfect, because you're moving that in the room, and it's going to interact with the room differently. So
I like this guy saying, put it on a treadmill. When it gets to the end of it, it's fall.
Boom, you're done, dude.
Just
next,
start
guys, like this one. No, okay, see you later. And there it goes.
We can put some foam on the treadmill.
Oh man, that's so
all of a sudden the audience just hears thump, the speaker. Well, guess that one's done.
I guess we won't be returning that to the manufacturer.
Oh boy,
I love it, dude. All right, let's go here. Tiki Time says, what is the latest opinion on conditioners, like line conditioners? I read you shouldn't hook up amps to line conditioners. Are they needed if you have a dedicated electrical lines to your projector, amp, subs, and processor? Great question, and I've heard a bunch of different opinions on this as well. Some people say it actually hurt the performance of their subwoofers, because it limited the amount of amperage that they could receive. I don't know. What do you guys think? I have a line condition. Well,
it depends on what he means by line conditioners.
Like, say, a Panamax, a Furman, all of those.
I mean, those are effectively just kind of beefed up
surge protectors. Yeah. I don't think they're going to change the signature. I mean, some people say, oh, yeah, it cleaned up the sound. I think you're calling BS there. Or I'm calling BS there.
I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think they have their purpose. They can help.
Yeah.
So like if you have ground loops, and they can solve and remove some hum if you have issues in your circuits, but they're not going to be magic. I mean, they're effectively just ground loop isolators that can fix some things there. They're multiple outlets. Some of them are programmable so that you can have programs to turn certain outlet banks on and off.
Correct. Delays. So they'll turn an amplifier on, give it a I don't know, half-second delay or a full second.
Flipping a breaker due to current inrush.
Yeah.
I
like that.
Surge protection's a big one. A lot of them have big-time insurance policies on them that can help if you get hit with a lightning strike or something. But no, I don't think they're magic. I think all of us use them.
Yes.
What do you think, Jonathan?
So it's kind of a difficult one to answer because I personally believe that they're helpful, but I've heard so many people say that they think that they're kind of not worthwhile, that you just have to make up your own mind. I have personal experience where I know they're helpful because in our previous house, we had kind of dirty power there. And I use an AVR with like active voltage regulation, right? So it's putting it at 120 hertz. It's refiltering. It's a true sine wave functionality. It's in my Panamox where it's no battery backup, but it's actively making a perfect 120 hertz sine wave. And then for my projector, I have it on a UPS backup, which is also a true UPS, like a true sine wave. Now, I say all that to get this out of the way. At my old house, when I didn't have one of these line conditioners in place on my Epson projectors, my screen would flicker and it would kind of make me crazy. And plug it into one of these UPS or active line conditioners and the flicker would disappear. So I don't really believe in the audio cleanup side of it, or at least I haven't been able to hear it. Yes, absolutely can remove ground hum. And if you have ground hum, then that can help because, I mean, that's part of the purpose of it. But if you don't have ground hum, you're not going to hear like, oh, it's more crisp highs or something. I don't really believe in that.
Yeah.
But physically, without any shadow of a doubt, it helped clear up projector flicker for me. With a bulb based projector. So I do think they have value. And for all the reasons you guys mentioned, I think that they have value, including the just kind of the ideology that you're a little safer behind it, right? Because it's absorbing any kind of influx of current. I remember one time during a lightning storm, I was watching my equipment, the whole house shut off.
Yeah.
It came back on in just a few seconds later. And I happened to be looking at at the time it was a Monster Power unit. Very top end Monster Power, like one down from the huge thing.
Really expensive
one down. Yeah, it was the second highest. It had active voltage regulation on it too. Anyway, it came back up, and that meter on the front went into alarm mode, and it said something like, and I don't remember exactly. It's been 10 years ago, but it said something like 300 volts or 300 amps. That 300 volts. I'm sorry, 300 volts that was showing on that front display, and it locked and clamped down.
Oh wow!
And I was thinking like, well, heck, I'm glad that didn't just go into my AVR and everything, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think they have function and purpose.
Yeah. Like you said, just don't go into it expecting like this thing's gonna make this sprinkle some magic dust on your speakers and make them sound magical.
Right.
That's not what they're designed for. Even though sometimes manufacturers may make some of those bold claims, and sometimes people make those claims, but yeah. So I think they have their value, they have their purpose, and you just got to figure out if that fits and checks all the boxes that you need it to check and works for your setup. Aaron, good to see you, man, in the chat. So he's going back to your comment earlier. He said, for what it's worth, a large diameter, heavy duty Lazy Susan hardware we purchased for around $50 to $100 online. If you want to go the route of making a manual turntable, it would be super easy. So, Aaron, you're on duty for that. So you go ahead and draw that up and build it.
He's like, how do I erase my comment?
You know, I'll cover your gas to get to M-Wave, and you just bring that joker, man. I'm sure Ryan would be all about that, right?
Yes. Yeah, link me, Aaron.
Show us your ways, man. Aaron's super handy, man. Appreciate that. That's good advice, though, man. Cool. Gladiator, appreciate the 40. I don't know what currency that is, so I'll just say 40. He says, what is the difference in the UMIC and the UMM6? So I'm not familiar with UMM6. UMIC 1 versus UMIC 2. So you guys might know more about that
this without looking it up.
What is a UMM6?
The USB microphone.
Mic. Let's see.
Oh, it's the Dayton.
Dayton Audio. Okay. Yeah, so I've never used a Dayton Audio myself. I have the UMIC 2, but I actually haven't hooked it up yet. I've always used the UMIC 1.
My recommendation, and Jonathan always loves it when I say this, is just buy an Omni mic.
Amen.
Omni mic.
It's so much easier.
Okay. A little bit more expensive.
It is.
But
so much easier, though.
So maybe Gladiator, do some research on the Omni mic, see if that's a good fit for you too.
I mean, it's not that much more expensive than a UMIC 2.
Okay.
So this is interesting that I'm just looking it up because I'm not very familiar with this one, but UMM6 says it's only rated frequency response 18 hertz to 20,000 hertz. That seems a little high. You'd like your calibrated mic to, I think Omni mic, for instance, is rated down to either 5 or 7. I'd have to look again. And the U mic would be lower rated too, although Ryan has some cautions with the U mic.
At least the ones coming from Mini DSP, they have a massive bump at 10 hertz. There's a big bump. So maybe if you get them from a different location, like Dan Black is saying from Cross Spectrum, possibly. But the other thing, the reason I'm recommending the Omni mic is because the Omni mic software is so much easier to use than REW, and you don't have to fight with
the driver thing or whatever it is,
or the outputs and stuff for the audio like you do with REW. It's so much easier to utilize because you can use external outputs and it just works. So I don't have any. I was hesitant, and I gave Jonathan a lot of grief about it, and now he gets to laugh at me every time that I suggest it. He's over there smirking in the top corner. I told you so.
It's just nice because you don't have to know very much about this hobby, and you can find out a lot more about this hobby by using it. It's so easy that a caveman can do it, as those commercials like to say. It's just
really, I need to get one because I'm not super technical. So
you don't have to be. You plug it in, you play track 2, and it does a live real-time sweep, and you move your mic around. You learn a lot about everything. I mean, it's just like it's a really good tool.
Right.
All these are really good tools. You just got to learn the software. And REW is not a novice piece of software, in my opinion. It's a little more complicated.
Yeah, Aaron gave you some more suggestions on how to actually
I'm already
build
that.
He'll do some research. Appreciate the extra stuff, but he's not building it, and he's not bringing it.
No, I'm gonna build it.
He's like, I'm peace out, man. I'm done. So, all right, let's go back up here. All right, here we go. Slick says, did I hear you all say last week that you should go sealed when the driver is over 18? So that probably came from me. I don't ever want to say that you should. What I found in my setup is I didn't have enough output with sealed until I went to 18s and multiple 18s. I have reviewed dual SVS SB3000s, and they were cool. It sounded great for music, but for movies, they didn't do enough for me in my room and what amount of SPL and low end extension that I wanted. Same thing. I even had the let me back up. SB sealed 16s from SVS. So that's the biggest ones that they carry. And they sent me both of them. So I had 2 SB 16s in my room. I'm like, this is cool. But man, I want a little bit more. So I had them send me the PB 16s and ended up buying the PB 16s. So to me, it wasn't until I got to that 18 size, and I had multiple of them. I have 4 of them, that I went, oh yeah, sealed. I'm digging this. It sounds different. It's definitely a different experience than ported. And it took me a little, I'll be honest, it took me a little bit to get used to that. But I like the fact that I get 0. I mean, you don't have to worry about port chuffing. It's super, super clean. I like sealed. Jonathan runs sealed in his setup. He's got 8 18s. Ryan has ported in his.
Yeah, but the ULFs might as well be sealed down to their port tuning.
Okay.
They're kind of an anomaly.
Okay. So I like sealed drivers when they're big. You know, I've heard the Stereo Integrity 24s. Those are sealed. Phenomenal output. Crazy depth. I mean, you're getting single digits. So I like sealed when they're, you know, when you've got really large drivers. What about you guys?
I don't have a strong preference. When you have a low tuned 18 like Ryan does with those 4,000 ULFs, those things are beasts.
They are. They're absolute monsters, man.
Now, if you're talking like a 35 hertz tune with a pro audio cab, I'm not a big fan of that for home theater use. That has its place, but not for home theater use. Yeah. So yeah, it all depends on the port tune, really. And I've said this before, and I know Michael wasn't part of this particular event, but we did a blind subwoofer shootout in 2012, the one where it destroyed our tile. And And frankly, a lot of the people there that had very strong preferences, stated preferences coming in,
right, yeah,
they kind of realized that, hey, when everything's calibrated, you don't know what's playing.
they
You might
couldn't
not
tell.
even have the same preference. I
Wow,
won't even say people couldn't tell, because people could tell, but their
okay,
preferences didn't always align with what they thought coming in.
interesting, yeah.
So you would have guys say like, oh, man, I really preferred that third sub. I sat in the same seat all day.
Right.
You know, we had pairs of everything. Nothing was played solo. I
Mhm.
really preferred that third sub. And then there might be oh, I also preferred that 7 sub. Well, maybe that was a horn alignment. So they had their preferences, but we had a couple guys come and say, I absolutely love Porter, or absolutely love Sealed. And then they realized they preferred something else. So it was curious. It was very curious. And we had a group of a dozen people. Nobody identified the alignments correctly for all of them. You'd think that would be something that'd be common,
right.
and
It'd
it
be like,
wasn't.
oh, obvious.
So then at that point, you're kind of like, well, maybe it doesn't. When you have really competent subs, maybe it doesn't
Sure.
matter that much.
Okay, I like it. Appreciate the question, Slick. Mark says, Ryan, curious about your minimal uses of RC.
Well, this is Jonathan and I
room
both.
Correction. Yeah.
Ideally, you really shouldn't room correct or EQ above the Schroeder frequency of your room. And that typically is very, very, very low. And in my case, it's right around where my crossover point is. So it's just not worth me doing anything on the speakers. And if you have competent speakers, in my opinion, you don't really want to EQ them anyway. So even on my subwoofers, I'm doing very minimal EQ on them. And I could probably take a few of the filters out because I don't know if they're doing anything at my main listening position. But they are there to tame them from a little bit more outside of the main listening position. So I'm only running 4 filters on each one of my subs. So 16 filters entirely on my entire theater, and then doing time alignment. And I feel like my experience in my room is much better than what it was using room correction. Now, that may change with art. I don't know what art's going to give me, and I can't necessarily just use, well, I guess I could use art on and put a curtain low right around where my Schroeder frequency is so that it's not going into the speakers. So we'll have to see what happens with art and if I allow Dirac to come in and tame in the subs instead of doing it manually. But that's really been my experience with it, just doing things minimally and then allowing the speakers to do their work. Yeah. Jonathan, anything to add to that?
I pretty much agree with everything you said. If you have a good quality speaker, I'm not sure that EQ is really to your advantage when you measure it out, because it's going to vary seat to seat. So I've talked about this before in Youthman's videos. If you're EQing for one seat, you're probably making another seat worse.
Yeah.
So if you just let the speakers play in its natural manner, you don't have that issue so much. You don't have like a 5 dB correction at this seat, which makes it a 10 dB wrong in the next seat over. Maybe you just have a couple dB difference. And so for uniformity of sound throughout a broad seating range, I think going less EQ is a better idea. If you're trying to tailor it for a strict seat and that's the only seat you care about, then maybe you do on EQ, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But that's my logic for it.
I like it. Hope that helps, Mark. Gladiator with another 100 super chat. I'm using Denon's 4700H in my bedroom in a 5.1.4 setup with limited options for sub placement. Can I improve subwoofer experience with REW? So does he have multiple subs or a single sub? Almost sounds like he's got one. Let me know, Gladiator. Do you have one subwoofer or do you have multiple subwoofer? So anytime you have multiple subwoofers, I think definitely if you have something like, well, REW, think about this. REW need a calibrated mic, whether it's Dayton Audio, whether it's the UMic 1, UMic 2, or the Omni mic. You're going to use something like that. Take some measurements. So that's going to show you what your frequency response is in the room. So where that could be beneficial is REW by itself isn't going to change anything. It just lets you see what's happening, sees the response in the room. But where that could be beneficial to you is you could then move that subwoofer, let's say a foot over to your right, or maybe a different corner of the room. Take another measurement. Is it better or worse, performing in that location? So I think that can definitely help. It's not going to fix anything, but unless you're physically moving that subwoofer. Now, if you have more than one subwoofer, you would add something like a mini DSP. So that allows you to take the information that REW has measured, and then you can go into the software and you can make some changes to EQ, time align them, things like that. And that can help them, what I call, play nice together instead of fighting against each other and creating nulls and these dips in your room. It can actually fix that so you have a flatter frequency response. Okay, so he does say he has one subwoofer. So what are your thoughts there? Can you improve his subwoofer experience using REW? So anything else you can add to that?
I think you covered it real well, Michael. REW won't fix it alone. You got to use what you find with REW to change the EQ, and you might be able to do it through your AVR, but it'll be really loose. You might have like a 63 hertz you could bump up on an EQ or something. It's not going to be very granular. Mini DSP or something, you can fix it. Yeah. Problem is with one subwoofer and limited placement options, basically you can't move it. You got one subwoofer. You might have a null at your seating arrangement. It might help you identify there's a null, but you can't boost out of a null, perhaps. Or maybe you got a mode. You can cut that out. That might help. But ultimately, ideally, you would have ability to kind of move your subs around or move your seating around, either one, to accommodate what you're finding with REW. And then use your equalizer, your manual EQ, or your mini DSP to fix it. You got it, Michael.
And if you're really hardcore, if moving the subwoofer doesn't fix it, move the bed around, man. Just rearrange the furniture and then move the subwoofer, try it. But,
sorry, love, this is exactly where the subwoofer needs to be. We have to reposition the room.
So I've told this story before, but there's truth here, right? A guy here local was a part of the ABS forum group, and he asked some other guys to come over and help him tune his room. We got over there, and he said, I can't move my sub, but he had a big, deep room, and we realized he was sitting in a knoll. We said, well, let's just move your couch forward 2 foot. Yeah. And so we measured around, we found the exact position, we moved the couch forward, and it fixed the problem. Then he had a nice flat frequency response. He wouldn't have known that unless we had a measurement of it, which is what REW is doing. Yeah. But you got to have some flexibility once you find what you find.
Yeah. Or you live with what you got and deal with it. Cool deal, man. Great question. I appreciate the super chat. Ike says, Youth Man, what do you guys think about in-wall subs? So great question, man. I haven't heard too many systems that have used in-wall subs. I know SVS, I had a chance to meet with those guys over at Cedia, and they just introduced a new, was it a dual 8-inch?
Yeah, Martin Logan.
I don't think it's 10. Martin Logan's got one. So there are definitely some manufacturers that are going that direction.
Depends on what we classify as an in-wall sub. Because theoretically,
elaborate on that.
My 4,000 ULFs are
in there. It's in your wall. That is for sure. That's
great.
Funny.
Jonathan knew where I was going.
Yeah,
I think he's talking about a traditional in-wall subwoofer.
Yeah.
And again, we're trying to classify. I think there's definitely some challenges. So think about this. My biggest challenge, I think, with the in-wall sub is how do you know where it's going to perform best in your room before you cut the drywall? I mean, you can't, like, most of them don't have a back box because they're using inside your drywall as the back box. So it's not like you can just stick it on the wall, play a sweep, because that's going to interact totally weird and kind of cancel each other out. So I think that's going to be a big challenge.
My recommendation is always to try and avoid them if you can, because they're very restrictive, and you're going to be really limited on output. Like I'm going to bet that even SVS's, and I know Martin Logan's, this is nothing against those products. It's just a limitation of an in-wall subwoofer.
They have a place. I mean, some people just can't physically put
their frequency response is going to fall off very early. Like I'm betting 35 to 40 hertz is what my guess is. And that is heavily reliant on EQ. If you didn't EQ it, you'd probably be falling off at like 70, I would bet.
Okay.
Because you're using very small drivers. You're using a small space. The other issue that you run into is you have no ability to contain or decide what that space is. So you're at the mercy of whatever that cavity is. And if there's a leak in that cavity, that you've put the subwoofer in, well, now you've got another problem. So my recommendation,
they're saying 22 hertz.
This is a dual 8.
Oh, technically 9 dual active 9-inch drivers.
Is it an open box?
So you can see
It looks sealed.
I don't think there's too many pictures of it.
They have a graph there.
Yeah, go down to the graph.
I was just trying to see if they have any other pictures there. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so it's a sealed enclosure. All right, and here's your graph.
Thank you, Sloan.
You're welcome.
So that doesn't look like if. Can you let me zoom in on my screen? Yeah.
That make it better?
Look at 20 hertz, man. That's not down to 20 hertz. You're talking about boundary gain. That's
20 hertz
off
right here.
So
yeah, they're not specific. I mean, that's what 20 hertz is.
Why did they include this?
Minus 12
or minus 3 dB at 20 hertz.
No,
hertz. That's not 3D from this.
No,
from here, that's 90 something.
Unless I'm misinterpreting the graph.
No, that's. I mean, here's 20 hertz right here. You're at 78 dB versus 95 dB up here, or 92 dB.
Minus 20 it. Minus 20
so is that supposed to say 23 dB?
It's probably saying it's probably meaning including room gain, right? Is that what it's hopefully?
Maybe that's what they're trying to get at.
But I mean, in room they're saying it should get down to 19 hertz.
I don't want that.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm probably misinterpreting the graph, but that is effectively almost identical to what the Martin Logan is going to deliver, which is 8-inch drivers. You've got a sealed cab, or you've got a ported cab, or not a ported cab, but using I guess they're both technically sealed, but having a backer box versus using the in-wall cavity.
Yeah.
My recommendation in going this route is always trying kind of what I did, and that's find a way to hide a full
700
cabinet.
Subwoofers.
Yeah,
kind of what I did.
Yeah, Chris said that he tried the JBL in walls, and he ended up deciding on standing subs. Like
do standing subs, but if you've got a wife approval factor or a spouse approval factor, what have you, try and just find a way to build a cavity in the wall where you can slide a full sub into. Maybe not like a 4000 ULF, because I lucked out in my room, but that's my recommendation now, and that's typically what I recommend.
That makes sense. So I just I'm trying to think of Ike's setup because I did a home theater tour of his. I'm not sure he's got any of those walls that he could. Well, all right, Ike. Yeah, that would be your rear wall.
That may work
behind your rear seats, because that leads into his office, his studio, where he edits his videos, and so that might be something to consider.
Would you have any wall resonance or vibration that would start in your drywall, do you think? If both those 9-inch drivers got going, are they going to start making that wall
maybe
vibrate?
I don't know.
People aren't as crazy as we are with low frequencies. They may think like, oh, we can do 80 dB and it would be fine. And we're doing the same thing, and the drywall's like imploding on itself as the subwoofer.
I think we just convinced him to look elsewhere. So he said the PB3000s are actually less expensive.
Yeah.
So
you're going to get a better experience.
I'll be honest, man. I really enjoyed the PB3000s. They're great subs. Good question there, man. Appreciate it. Ryan, good to see you in the chat. I have 2 SPL, so these are Klipsch SPL 150s. Right now, I have them both at the front of the room. Would I get better response if I put one in the back of the room? My suggestion has always been measure, because what happens is you can put it in the rear, one in the rear of the room, and it may sound like you have more bass, but did it impact other frequencies? You may be hearing the 50 hertz has now a peak. Maybe it's a boost in those frequencies. Ideally, you want it to be flat. So to me, I mean, I don't know innately if you I know sometimes they say put one in one corner and one in the opposite corner. If you have 4, I think ideally it's like front, center, middle, like mid wall of each wall. Most people can't do that though. So, but my suggestion is just always, man, get a mic, measure it, and then try it. Put it in the rear wall, put it in the front, put it on your side walls, try different places, measure it, and then you know, okay, these locations work really well. So, but I mean, there may be some general rules. Do y'all know any general rules as far as putting one at the front of the room, one in the back? Is that ideal? There may be some general rules.
Depends on the room.
I don't think there's a general rule. It's going to be room specific and preference specific.
Okay.
You could put, if you had 2 subwoofers, virtually anywhere in the room, and as long as they're calibrated for distances and so forth. To your point, measure it, see what works well, see what you like.
Yeah.
I know, just as a point of note, when you have a front and rear, you'll probably want the front to be a dB or so hot, just so your sound of your bass stems from the front of the room. That's what I've experienced anyway.
Right.
If you try to level match them, it's not as nice as having the front sound stage still sound like the front sound stage, in my opinion.
And the other challenge with that is if you're going to need to time align those.
Oh yeah.
So if your front, especially if you're at different distances between the front subwoofer and the rear subwoofer, you need to have some kind of ability to be able to time align those so that the bass from the one subwoofer hits your ears at your listening position the same time the front one does. So they do it collectively.
Yeah, every time you move them, re-EQ before you do your audition. And if you got the time and the space and the interest, run it for a week. Put it in a couple different locations. Run your auto EQ. Run it for a week. Do it again.
Yeah.
Aaron has sent me down this lazy Susan rabbit hole.
He's already doing research. Appreciate it, Aaron. Sean says, Youth Man, what do you think of the new Klipsch lineup? I think it may, I think he means compete. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by complete. I think you mean, will it compete like with the other? So Klipsch just introduced some new subwoofers, and I made a video. If you want to go check that out, I shared my thoughts on that. The short version is Klipsch over the years has not made great subwoofers. Their amplifiers have, a lot of times they failed. Now, granted, there's plenty of other subwoofer. They're not the only subwoofer company that has amp failures. There's a lot of companies that do that. But they've had their share. And a lot of customers that even love Klipsch will buy Klipsch speakers, but then they'll go with a different brand for subwoofers. And so Klipsch has taken note of that. And I think they've made some significant strides towards fixing that. Number one, they've added a 5-year warranty on not only the product, the driver and everything, but also on the amplifier. So they're at least willing to back up what they claim, which is, we've tested these things. We put them in these crazy conditions. And they shared with me in a webinar of what they did to try to basically just put these in just not ideal situations. Basically put it in a closet, crank that thing up, and just let it go wide open for days and see when does it fail, and that hopefully you're not doing that with your subwoofer, but they just really tried to hurt these, to see how long they would last. And so I think they've made some progress on that. So I don't know. We all won't know until they actually get out in the field. People have bought these, they've used them, and they've had them for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to see, are they living up to what Klipsch claims? One thing that I'm excited about is they have focused on allowing these to dig deeper. So providing more low end extension. I've had the RSW 15s and they hit about 20 hertz, and man, they drop off like a cliff after that. I mean, as soon as it hit 20, it was just boom, non-existent anything below that. And so I'm grateful that, and of course we don't have really measurements from third parties. No review units have been sent out. So we haven't seen any of that come back. But if they live up to their claims, again, they're digging down much lower than 20 hertz, which is a positive. So I like it. I think they're heading in the right direction. And they're really trying to change the way that people view Klipsch subwoofers. So, yeah. So again, we're just going by specs, what Klipsch has claimed. We haven't seen any out in the wild, so to speak. So time will tell. And that's just kind of been my philosophy and my take on it, is that time will tell. I used to have, had somebody tell me one time, don't tell me, show me kind of thing. And so right now we have Klipsch telling us that these are going to perform well. They're the best subwoofers we've ever made. And so now is the show me time, let people begin to get these into their own homes, testing them out. There definitely have been some people that have had these kind of in beta, and they've been very pleased with them. So like I said, time will tell, but I'm excited for them. I'm glad
I'm rooting for them.
Yeah, I'm glad they're making some strides towards making a better subwoofer. Because again, most people, even in the Klipsch community, man, when I was in the forum, they were like, I own Klipsch, but I bought this brand subwoofer because Klipsch ain't making them real great. So I think it's a good thing. Michael says, how do IB subs? So he's talking about infinite baffle. If you don't know what an infinite baffle is, essence, you take the front of the subwoofer is firing like into the room, and maybe the rear of the subwoofer is firing into an adjacent room. So there's an infinite baffle, an infinite wall that separates the front sound wave and the back sound wave. So how do IB subs compared to ported subwoofers? That's a great question, and I don't know if I have a great answer. I've heard both. My buddy's got an infinite baffle sub, insane output. I've heard ported subs, Ryan's system, insane output. I've heard Jonathan's insane output. He's got sealed subs.
Infinite baffle is going to be a lot more comparable to sealed, because basically what you're doing as an infinite baffle is making an enclosure that's infinite with a sealed design. It's going to take less power to drive the drivers than a traditional sealed box, because you don't have the resistance from the airspace in a small sealed enclosure. But it doesn't, like a ported design has a place where the driver will not be reinforced by the box any longer, and it will fall off. It will have 6 to 10 dB of boost above that port frequency for maybe 20 to 30, 40 hertz, and then below that nothing, or just distortion. Where infinite baffle will play all the way down like a sealed sub, but it won't. It's your question is probably more like sealed to ported is the bottom line. Okay.
Gotcha. I think both of them can be phenomenal subwoofers. I've heard them in different setups. It's a different implementation, that's for sure. So you got to have that other room available. Like my buddy, his is built in a basement, so he's got 4 18s firing into his room, and then the rear of that box is firing into the adjacent other part of his basement. So it's just infinite baffle there, but it's pretty awesome for sure. And Jonathan, anytime you got a bail, man, I know we're right at 2 hours.
I think I might turn off at the hour mark. So another 8 minutes or so.
Yeah, sounds good, man. All right. Michael said, oh, that was that one. All right. Fortnite says, hi guys, I'm starting a new home audio setup for an open concept, large area, 700 square foot. So far I bought 2 Klipsch R820F tower speakers and a center RP 450C. What entry level receiver would be best? So definitely best is, man, there's a lot of opinion. Yeah, there's a lot of opinions on what is best. I've had great luck with Denon. I think they provide a lot of bang for the buck. But then you've got some new companies, not new companies, but you got some companies that are implementing Dirac Live, like Onkyo, with their AVRs, which is new. Onkyo had in the past always had their own. Well, originally they had Odyssey, but then they went to their own
EQ.
Yeah, that was garbage. I don't know what they did. Well, I know why they did it. It was probably just a financial decision. But I like the fact that they've got Dirac Live now. So I think that could be a viable option. There are guys that love Yamaha. I'm not a big fan of the Wapow, what they call their room correction software, but some guys really love it. So I'm not sure there's a great answer to that. I think those are some of the ones that a lot of guys turn to: Yamaha, Denon, Marantz. Any other ones? Some people use Pioneer, and people like them different for different reasons. Some people like it because of the ease of use or the reliability, and so that's there's just a lot of caveats for that. So Kyle says, any difference in actual sound output between Class D and A, B, H, G, elemental P, all of them? Clarity, detail, dynamics, imaging. Do we really get a difference in sound between these different? Is it typography or typology? I think it's typography.
Typology.
So I don't know which one it is. I always mess it up.
Typology.
One of them is like a map.
Different class.
Graphy is going to be a map.
There
but
you go.
Yes, so yes, in a way that as a Class A or Class AB, or probably even, I think even the H and the G, as they heat up, the sound characteristic may change. Whether that's audible, who knows? But I think for the general purpose, no. I'm going to say no.
I've owned some different class. I've never owned an A amplifier because typically those are real big, real heavy, and very expensive. So I haven't owned any Class A. I have owned some Class AB. I've reviewed a Class H. It was either H or G. I think it was H. And I've reviewed some Class D, and I'm not so sure I'd be able to tell the difference in some blind A/B comparisons between the three. The only time I always mention that you'll probably hear an audible difference, like big time, is with like a tube amplifier, because they specifically have their own kind of signature sound to them.
Yeah.
They alter that sound on purpose, but again, I think you need to look at, all right, what are your goals? With Class D's come a long way. Used to, they didn't sound that great. They didn't perform that well. But now guys that have measuring tools, they can measure these and go, man, these actually measure really well. And so Class D has really been taking the front stage in a lot of these manufacturers. And part of that, you've got a lighter chassis. You've got, not chassis, but just the whole unit is lighter. They're more efficient. They don't produce near as much heat. So if you've got a room that stays hot and you're trying to eliminate some of that heat, man, Class D might be a great option for you. But I don't think you're necessarily going to have better imaging on this type versus this type, or better detail or dynamics.
I've done this. I can't tell.
I've done 4 different amp shootouts, and AB, we didn't do A like you're saying, Michael, for the same reasons, but we did AB, we did D, we did H, and nobody 4 times, nobody could tell the difference.
Yeah.
So I think it falls into that realm we've talked about before, where it could be measurable. Maybe the oscilloscope couldn't read a difference, but human ears aren't granular enough or detailed enough to pick it up.
Cool. Frank V says, woven or perforated projection screen, which to use and why? Is 10 feet enough distance to not see screen texture or image pixels on, say, a 140-inch diagonal screen? Great question, man.
I'll let you guys take this since you use AT screens.
That's hilarious. I was going to let you take it because I'd never use a perforated. So here's my take. My vision isn't super great. Seymour, I have a Seymour Center Stage XD. It's a woven screen. And they recommend, I think they recommend like it's either 10 or 11 feet. I sit 9 feet. I've never once looked at my screen and saw the weave. Okay. Maybe if lights are on and I'm just looking at the screen, I might be able to see the weave, but I've never been watching a movie ever and went, oh man, I can see the texture. I can see the weave. So, but again, I don't have eagle vision. So maybe if your vision's amazing, you'd want to make sure. I think the best thing as far as the distance is just check with the manufacturer of the screen that you're looking at. They'll tell you. They're like, hey, we recommend this distance. I don't think the size necessarily matters because it's just the distance from that screen. Making that screen bigger isn't going to make that section that you're looking at any different. I don't think that really matters. But what are some differences between perforated and woven. So to me, my understanding, perforated, you're going to get more light reflection. So the image is going to be brighter. But then there's other kind of pros and cons as far as like the distance you have from the speaker to that fabric. So certain brands, or I'm sorry, certain types of fabric requires a certain distance from the speaker to that fabric. And again, I would just check with the manufacturer to say, okay, let's say Seymour. Ask them, say, okay, what is the distance, the minimum distance that I need to place my speaker to a perforated screen versus a woven screen? One may allow you to get really, really close, while the other one says, hey, we really need you to be. And so it may be you don't have that depth, you don't have that available space to put that in. So that may sway your decision. Same thing with perforated, or I mean, the brightness. Maybe you need more brightness in your room. So perforated may be the way to go. So that's my understanding on those, but I've only really owned 2 screens. One was a non-acoustic transparent screen, and then the acoustic transparent screen that I have now, which is a woven fabric. So any other thoughts on that, guys?
My experience echoes yours. I have a Seymour XD screen as well. I sit 12 feet from the screen. I can't see the pattern. I can see the pixel grid if I'm over zoomed, because my over zoom is equivalent to 156 inches. So I can see the pixel grid, but it's not the screen material that I'm seeing the grid on.
Okay.
You go up to like 6 or 8 feet, you probably couldn't see it, but that's our experience is going to be paralleled on that.
Okay. So a couple other thoughts from the chat. Ike says, I have the same screen and do not see the woven texture. 137 inch. Ike, how far are you from your screen?
So something
maybe
to add
from
here
your front
too
row.
is that woven screens are industry standard, supposed to be better for acoustically transferability.
Okay, for sound.
Yes,
okay.
In comparison to a perforated screen. Now,
screen.
whether or not you're going to notice that, subjective.
Okay.
Probably not. It's measurable, but I don't think you're going to notice.
Okay, so he says he's about 10 feet, so that's cool. And then Randy says seating distance and more, or what they call moire. So that's where you see this like a screen door effect. You can see that texture on a perf screen versus the picture quality can be better on a perf and brighter. Drop in audio quality can also be a difference. So see, there's that trade-off. So I would recommend finding your budget, because each manufacturer is going to provide a different budget and quality, but figure out where your budget is, find a manufacturer that's going to fit within that budget, and then reach out to them specifically and say, okay, here's the room, here's the space, here's the size, and let them kind of guide you on whether or not they recommend a perf or a woven screen. Good question. All right, Jonathan, I don't want to kick you out, but it's up to you, buddy.
Yeah, I think I'll go put the kids to bed and everything.
I try to respect you, baby. I got you back, man. I appreciate you, brother. You're awesome.
Bye, Jonathan.
Good night. Thanks for leaving. Yep.
Mr. Toodaloo says room is 18 by 14 by 8 foot ceiling. Perlison dual D15S or D12S. Thanks, guys. Number one, I love the Perlison subs. They're so incredible. Good. They're super clean. They're gorgeous subs. They've got some incredible technology inside the subwoofer. I've had a chance to speak with Dan at Perlison, the founder there, and Eric, and what they're doing inside the subwoofer, like on the fly. I mean, it's measuring. I can't exactly articulate what it's measuring, but it's measuring things, and it's like, okay, if this happens and we're going to tweak this, we're going to do this. So it's doing some pretty complex math inside those jokers. But as far as output, man, I mean, that's all right. So that's a room that's about my size. My room's 13 by 19, but 10 foot ceiling. So you're definitely about the same size.
D15s.
Well, and I'll just throw this out there. I like going big. I'll be honest with you. I'm all for going big. Are the 12s, would they provide plenty of bass in that room? 100%.
Yeah, but they won't get to the lower frequencies that the 15s can.
I get it. So I'm just saying, I mean, it depends on what you're what your budget is, I'm guessing if you're asking, you have the ability to go 15s or 12s. I don't think I've ever seen somebody
go
buy
big
bigger
and,
and go, man, I should have went to the 12.
I should have got the smaller one. No,
but you always hear guys buy the smaller and they go, man, I wonder what if, or man, I should have gotten. And that goes with
just
TV
go big,
size,
man.
screen size. So I mean,
do it.
Would the 12s be good? Yeah. Would the 15s be better? Again, I kind of go back to the illustration, and not to say that the 12s would struggle, but the 15s are going to perform. They're going to be able to handle output at a certain level easier than the 12s will, just from physics. You know, they're going to pressurize your room more.
They're a bigger, better sub.
Yeah. I mean, and it's got that push-pull configuration. So, dude, putting 4 15s in your room.
Do the D15s. Send me an email. We'll make it happen.
I got 4 18s in my room, and I'll be honest, man, I don't ever see me going back to anything smaller than an 18.
I think my distributor has both of those in stock. So send me an email. We'll get you taken care of. I think my recommendation is always go bigger, go home. You may hate yourself for a little bit spending the extra money, but once you get over that,
I don't think you'll regret it.
You run out of room. You stop going down this upgrade trail once you get there. It becomes, well, let me just add more of the same thing instead of replacing, because they're always going to be in your theater once you start getting to that level. So I think D15 or D215 would be the route I would go.
Says the guy with
no.
A stupid amount of subwoofers in his own setup.
Just 4,000s.
Yeah,
okay?
that's it. And some near fields.
Mark's got more than me. Newbie's got more than me. Let's.
Why do you got to judge other people, man?
I'm not.
Why do you got to compare
You're judging me.
Why do you got to compare your flaws to somebody else's flaws?
Get off my subwoofers, man.
Joel, good to see you in the house, man. So Joel, I did a home theater tour of his setup, man. He's got a cool system. He says, and he's got some JTR subs. He says, hey guys, Michael knows my system. Would you recommend my dual PB16 in the front to be ported, which the sealed RS2? So he's got JTR RS2s in the back as near field. So I think he's saying, where should he place them? Should he put the porteds up front? Should he put the porteds in the rear?
I'm confused.
Right now running.
Are you asking if you should use the PB16s as near field or the RS2s?
I think that's what he's saying. Like, what should he use, ported or sealed?
PB16s is the near fields. Let those RS2s off the chain.
Okay.
They're going to outpace your PB16s.
So put those up front so you can crank them up. Because the idea, if you've got the near field subs, you kind of have to back them down quite a ways, right? Because they're so close
you want
to you.
Create a spinal injury.
All right. That makes sense. So, yeah. So I think right now he's got the RS2s in the rear. So, all right, Joel. That's that. Then
if I'm understanding that correct,
that's what I'm seeing. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. He says his PB16s are in the front, they're ported, sealeds are in the rear. But
yeah, I wouldn't use the RS2 as near fields. You have to turn those down so far to do that. Put them in the front, let them go.
So Joel go ahead.
And the other thing, if you're asking if you should run the PB16s in sealed or ported mode, sealed, because they're going to integrate with the RS2s better. You're going to run into more issues if you're running them ported when you're trying to integrate them in with sealed. It took me days to get mine to behave together.
All right. So I'll show you kind of what he's working with. So let me pull up my screen here. We can stop sharing that screen. Let's share another one. Right here. Here we go. All right. So this is interesting. I'll just show you.
I remember this house.
Dude, so he's got all kind. Dude, I would, before you do that, make sure you've got all that stuff on lockdown, man. Because all of that's going to come down when you start unleashing the beast. So here's his living room right now up front. PB16's up front. And let's see if I can find a little spot where we flip around the room. I'm just skimming forward. Give me a second, guys.
So are the RS2s in there right now?
Okay, here we go, right here. So no, so this was before the RS2s.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got basically where his rear speakers are behind that couch. I think he had to just move the couch forward a little bit and place those right behind there.
No, put the PB16s back there.
Man, you know it's going to be hard though, Joel, and it's definitely going to add some challenges. Well,
the other thing to consider,
they're really deep. They're really deep.
They are, but if he puts the RS2s up front and lets them go, he may not even need the PB16s.
Oh, dang! All right, Joel. So try it both ways, man. I know it's a big speaker. I mean, goodness. They're both, 175 pounds for the PB16.
Obvious answer is to sell the PB16s and buy another RS2.
Or RS1s would go back there.
Yeah, either.
And then put the RS2s up front.
Yeah.
Man, all right. Yeah, this is a bad rabbit hole, Joel. Yeah. This is
I'm a bad influence.
This is not the best advice for you. Cool, man. Appreciate you being in the chat. Pete says, would you recommend a home theater if the context is mostly streaming movies and shows? I heard streaming only supports lossy Atmos surround. I think a home theater is a great thing. So if you're talking about like a dedicated theater room, I think you can still have an amazing experience even with streaming. Now, I don't like streaming that much, but I think you can still benefit from having a theater room, whether it's in a living room or whether it's in a dedicated room. So yeah, I'm all for that. Because eventually down the road, you may not just stream. You may find that you really enjoy it, but you're like, man, I know I'm missing out. And so let me try some physical media and get a 4K player and try it. And you may be like, oh, wow, this is cool. Or you may go down the route of Plex and kind of rip in your own media to a server, or you may go to a Kaleidoscape. And so there's definitely, I think it's one of those things where it's kind of like the soundbar analogy. It's still a nice step up. You're still going to enjoy it, but then it may lead to wanting a little bit more down the road. So that'd be my advice, man. Chris says, if I had some higher class D amps, I'd give Bi-Wire another chance, but personally, I'd rather bi-amp my towers at that point. Yeah, I'm just not super convinced that bi-wiring and bi-amping adds a whole lot to that.
I think there's a purpose for bi-amping, but most context is not going to give you anything.
Leadership Push says, if you had to make a choice, 5.1.2 or 7.1, which would it be? That's a great question.
5.1.2.
So you like having the two Atmos?
Most of the time, most rooms don't have the separation needed for 7. It's a minimal gain there. You're going to gain more over having the height channels.
I know. All right. So, and this is kind of where I'm torn, because with you, like when I went from 5.1 to 7.1, I didn't hear any different. Now, ideally, my rear surrounds or surround backs are not ideal position, because I have a door that is kind of in the way of where they should be. And so I had to place that rear speaker above that door, angled down. So it's not ideal. But I've always been a fan, and I've tried to advocate to you guys, if you can, I recommend going with 4 Atmos speakers versus 2 Atmos speakers. And the biggest reason is it's almost, I try to equate it to trying to have surround sound with only 2 speakers up front. So you're trying to wrap this sound and give this front, put sound behind you when you've only got 2 speakers in front of you. Now, granted, you could put your Atmos speakers right above you.
Yeah, that's what you do.
It's going to kind of encompass you. So I get that. But what you lose is the ability to move from front of you, above you, to behind you, above you. Does that make sense? So being able to have the motion.
Yeah, and with Atmos, or with those height channels, I should say, most of the time those speakers that you're buying to put up there are not that expensive. And if you have an AVR, if it can do 7 channels, it can probably do 9. So the expense of going from 2 to 4 height channels is not that great. So as Michael said, if you can do it, it's going to give you a better scenario. My suggestion when you do this is always wire.
Yeah.
If you were to do 6, put the wires up there. Don't necessarily use them, but wire for it.
Yeah. So my recommendation would be, just to change that a little bit, I would do 5.1.4 over a 7.1, but that's just me.
Well, would you do 5.1.2 over 7.1?
Again,
I would.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like Atmos. I really do. It adds an element that the 7. I don't think what you're gaining. I don't think the benefit of the additional rear surrounds is like exceeds what you would gain in having height. You know, like above you. So yeah, I would do
a lot of people. You're not going to gain anything.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Separation between the channels isn't great enough, in my opinion.
Yep. Melvin says, "What's up, guys? Hoping to get out to M-Wave, man. We're super pumped about that. I hope you can make it as well. For those of you that are hanging out with us, maybe you came in late. If you haven't heard of M-Wave, I'm just going to throw this up there real quick. Take a look at the website. We're doing an event in Kansas City. Dates are July 14th through the 16th. It's going to be awesome. This is our second year doing it. So, man, I'd love to have you there. So, hoping to get out to M-Wave. Any thoughts on the Stark Sound 15 BOGO deal? Dude, I like any BOGO deal. If you can buy one, get one. That's awesome. Replacing an old Velodyne. Oh, the DPS 10. Nice. Okay, so bought at Circuit City back in the day. I used to work at Circuit City. I had my first Velodyne my first subwoofer was a Velodyne CT100, 10-inch subwoofer, 100-watt amp. So honestly, I think the Stark, I haven't heard the Stark. I know some guys that have owned them and have reviewed them. I think more than likely they're gonna, even just going from 10-inch to a 15-inch, that's massive. I remember when I went from a Velodyne CT100 to a Velodyne F1500, which was a 15-inch with a 250-watt amp, massive upgrade. And the fact that Velodyne is 20 years old, that amplifier probably could take a dump anytime. So
it's trying its hardest, and you're talking it down.
Yeah, I'll be honest, man. If that's a great deal for you, I have no idea what those cost. But if that fits your budget and it has the extension, and more than likely it's going to dig deeper than the Velodyne did.
Oh, probably
with
substantially.
With that 15-inch, and it's a much newer subwoofer. More than likely that's an awesome way to go. So definitely let me know if you get it and if you end up liking it. Billy says, "What is the ideal size for a home theater?" I don't think it's so much the ideal size; it's more the ideal aspect ratio. And I don't even know what that is, but it's basically, did they call it the golden rule? Yeah, a square is horrible.
Golden ratio.
Golden ratio. So there's a golden ratio, but I don't think there's an ideal size, because think about this: if part of it you're going to want to know is, okay, how big of a screen are you wanting to have in your room? How many theater seats do you want? Well, that's going to help dictate the size. I mean, if you only want 2 theater seats, why do you need a 50-foot room with a 270-inch screen? You don't, So I don't think the size is really that important. And I would just Google that, to be honest with you, Billy. Google ideal room, not aspect ratio. Well, I guess ratio. That's probably the correct verbiage you'd use on Google to find that. What is the ratio for a home theater? So,
in my opinion, the ideal size is whatever fits your use case the best.
So, but again, I would use some kind of calculator. I mean, Audio Advice Live has, or not Audio Advice Live, Audio Advice has a room calculator. So you can kind of look at that to see if that works well with the amount of speakers that you're trying to lay out. So, but I don't think the actual size of the room is what the bigger concern is. Kyle says, "Where do you start the slope for bass?" What's he asking?
I think he's talking about the crossover and the slope up. Okay. It's going to start at your crossover.
Okay.
And then it's going to depend on your crossover type. This is very subjective as far as what you're going to do. Some people will actually say you you start further out. My crossover's at 80 and slopes up pretty aggressively.
Right.
But I would just suggest, Kyle, you try different things and see what suits you the best. Because you can listen to what everybody else says and just do what they say. But what if that doesn't fit your situation? And what if something else works for you better? So my suggestion is be the captain of your own journey. Start at your crossover and then measure, make some changes, measure, make more changes, measure, and see what you start to like. And then start doing more of what you like until you get to a point where you're happy, and then be happy. And that's how I would go about that.
Tim, showing much love, man. Thank you so much. $20 super chat. You are such a blessing, man. Certainly appreciate your support. We're grateful for you. I didn't see a question, so if you had one, definitely drop it in the chat. We'll get to that. And if not, and Ryan, if you don't mind, just take a look at that. But if you're just saying, hey, man, sharing the love, I certainly appreciate you, brother.
Nothing there.
You're amazing. All right. Low Key says, do y'all think a 5.2 or 5.1 is still relevant in 2023? Great question. I think absolutely. I think you can get a phenomenal sound even with a 5.1 or 5.2 system.
I got a 4.1 in my living room.
Yeah. I think part of it is how big is your room? Because the bigger the room, the more separation you have for each speaker. So that's where you're going to benefit adding front wides or adding surround backs to make that a 7.1 or a 9.1. If you've got a small room like mine, I guarantee you, if I removed my rear surround backs, I probably wouldn't notice them. So I would have a 5.2.4 versus right now I have a 7.2.4. So yeah, 100%, man. If you're looking at doing a 5.1 or 5.2 in your setup, absolutely. As long as your room isn't massive, I think you can absolutely get away with a 5.1 or 5.2, 100%.
Man, Tim just dropped another 20.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Dude, you're amazing, man. Let me come back in here. Live. Tim, I appreciate it, brother. You're such, man, that's just awesome. I'm grateful. Seriously, guys. Absolutely grateful at your love, appreciation, and just your support, man. You guys allow me to do what I'm passionate about and do a 2 and 3 hour live stream, man, and just hang out, man. We're having fun. I always have fun. All right, low key. All right. Leadership Push says 5,000F versus 6,000F in a small room. Okay, so he's talking about the Klipsch.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a 5,000.
That's all you, brother.
Yeah, so they have a 5,000, which would be basically 5 1/4 inch drivers versus 6 1/4 or 6.5 inch drivers. To me, again, we kind of talked about this earlier. I don't think you can have too big of a speaker for even a small bedroom. My vote would be go with the 6,000. They're just going to be able to handle more output. Doesn't mean that you have to utilize all that output. And more than likely, again, I haven't looked at the current pricing of those. But that's the original versions, the 5,000 and 6,000. They now have a version 2 that came out. So you can probably get those on a pretty good deal. And so there may not be that much difference in price. There's probably a little bit difference in size comparison. So depending on your room, they may not fit as well. Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. But I mean, my vote would probably be the 6,000F. Both of them are great speakers. 6,000 is just going to give you a little bit more output on that speaker. Percy Bedford says, how do you rate the UF screen material against the center stage material? So he's talking about Seymour. So I have the center stage XD material, and then they also make a UF version. And honestly, I haven't had any experience with that. Ryan, have you? The UF material?
No, I think it has supposedly a finer weave.
Mm-hmm.
I think is what it has.
So if you sit closer,
maybe. I think you'd have to sit closer to notice.
Yeah. So I would recommend just contact Seymour. Those dudes are great. Chris Seymour, the owner of the company, Evan, both of those guys, they're amazing. They'll let you know. Give them the dimensions of your room, how big of a screen, how close are you going to be sitting, and they'll recommend, you know, the best setup for you. Tell them what projector you've got. So they know their product way better than I do. Billy says, how long is the wait for satin white? Man, Billy wants to order some stuff. Wasn't he the one earlier? Billy, he's
man's on a mission. I actually saw your
mood.
question come in, and I sent a message to Martin Logan. I will have an answer tomorrow. So shoot me a message to my email, and we can work that out. But I've already asked Martin Logan for you.
Cool.
They said they got back to me and said tomorrow morning.
Nice. Perfect.
We'll have an answer. Not tomorrow morning they'll be in stock, but tomorrow morning I'll know if they're in stock.
Yeah.
U2 someday drop $10.
All right. Oh man, you guys are killing it tonight. U2 someday, appreciate it, man. $10 super chat. You are amazing. Certainly appreciate the love and support. See you in the chat all the time. So man, that is super grateful. You guys rock. Will says, in designing a theater, do you want a walk-up wet bar in the room, or would it be better outside the room? Thinking about glasses rattling, drinks, fridge making noise. What do you have in your theater? So I don't have any of that because my room is way too small. But Ryan, you kind of have a setup.
I have a wet bar in my theater. I have a full-size refrigerator in the back. That doesn't bother me at all. That's actually awesome to have back there. The glasses, plastic. Do plastic. Try and have a way to stop your doors from vibrating. This is only if you're a significant bass head. If it doesn't bother you, then it's probably not going to matter. Or if you don't output enough low frequency, it's probably not going to matter. But if you do, you're going to hear the rattle, especially if the glasses start touching each other. So I don't have any glasses in there anymore. But the fridge is awesome. I'd put another bar back there in a heartbeat. It's so awesome to entertain and have all that back there. That's great.
Ryan keeps my beverages stocked back there. It's kind of nice, man. He's paying for it. You just go back there and get something, you know? I mean, I didn't say that out loud. Yeah, we'll have it stocked for M-Wave, man, for the VIP Gold and Platinum. We'll hook you up. All right. Hamwich says, are the prices for projectors going to come down anytime soon? Wish I'd have bought the JVC NZ8 at launch.
Nope, they're not. If anything, they're going to get more expensive. But Hamwich, I'm putting myself in there. But if you need something, shoot me a message. We'll see if we can do something for you. Especially if you're buying multiple things, we may be able to help you out.
Ooh, hey. So if you're building a theater room,
maybe
work with you there. Cool deal. Arturo says, what AVR from Emotiva is best recommended?
I'm not commenting.
Yeah, I think Emotiva just has the one, right? Or did they?
No, I think they have a couple.
Okay, yeah. The short version, Arturo, I haven't had any experience with the AVRs. I have had experience with their processors, and just my personal experience in my theater room versus ones that I've owned, as well as the RMC-1. They just had quite a few bugs in them, and so for the most part, that's the only information I can give you. So I don't know how they're going to work. I hope they work great, but I don't think they've been out long enough for people to really give some great feedback one way or the other, whether it's positive or negative.
Well, their last one wasn't very positive.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You
said you were, well, no, but he's saying they're AVRs. That's what I mean.
Oh,
yeah. So I don't know if the AVRs are going to be different than the pre-pros. So, but yeah. Adam says, where do you recommend obtaining sealed sub boxes for purchase or construction for kit from kit? Man, I butchered that up. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Looking to do near field 18 soon. So is there like a prefab box? Absolutely. There's some great companies out there. Take a look at, I would recommend probably 2 companies, and they're both going to be at M-Wave this year, and we're super pumped about that. Take a look at GSG Audio. Take a look at Stereo Integrity. Both of those are, I believe, are looking, I know GSG has always had these things called flat packs. So think of it like they do all the woodworking, CNC, cutting, labeling, numbering, They ship you the pieces, and then you just glue them together, clamp them together, put your own finish in, install your own subwoofer, that kind of thing.
There's
but
talks of SI doing it.
Right. So I believe SI is in the process of maybe doing that.
Parts Express.
So, oh yeah, Parts Express does too. So there's 3 companies: GSG Audio, Parts Express, and Stereo Integrity. Check out their websites, and but I think any one of those would be great options for you, just depending on your budget. Leadership Push, what do you all do to fend off the fever of upgrading your speakers? I keep wanting to make my sound better. Great question. I can tell you what has ended my upgrade is just what I have now. I mean, I literally don't see myself going any different direction in my theater room. You know, maybe in my living room, I'd want to try something different, not because I'm really looking for bigger, badder, better kind of thing, but just because I might go a different direction. But
Michael practices restraint much better than me.
Yeah, Ryan sucks at this game. I do. He's always buying and upgrading and adding, but yeah, and again, he's talking about just this. I'm saying speakers, not even subwoofers. So he's talking speakers.
I think that's going to depend on what you have now. At some point, you're not going to upgrade. Like my speakers,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
they're not really changing. Once you get to a certain level, there's nowhere else to go. Like so all these guys give me a really hard time for all my speaker upgrades and stuff that I do, but the speakers I'm not really changing. What I really got irritated with, and the part that really drove my last upgrade, was because I kept smacking my head on the bookshelves that were hanging from my ceiling. That doesn't happen anymore. So it's awesome. The bookshelves are high enough that I can walk underneath them. And then that spurred the added channel count because I could move those bookshelves to become height speakers. So that's really where that came from. It was anger. It was an upgrade out of anger, Michael. It was an anger upgrade from smacking my head. But once I think you get to a certain level of speaker, you're just what Michael alluded to. You're just happy. I mean, Jonathan's in the same place with his JBLs. There's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And I think we're all to that point.
And so my answer to that is do your best to hear as many different speakers as you can.
Come them way.
Because you're going to find, I was getting there. Just chill, man.
I bought a Lazy Susan.
Yeah. Oh, did you really?
I did.
That's awesome, man.
It'll support 4,500 pounds.
Oh, that's a Mac Daddy. So
I had to, because I don't know what speakers they're going to want. What if we put the Neoliths on that thing?
Oh, wow.
I gotta be able to do it.
No way. I would not put $100,000 speaker on a daggum Lazy Susan.
I mean, it's not actually a Lazy Susan. I bought a turntable, like an industrial turntable center, so then I can build the top and then put caster wheels on the outsides of it. So
I was thinking to get one of those. I don't even know what they call it, but remember the playground? You had the little wheel thing, and everybody grabbed a hold, and you run around in a circle. We could have just got one of those and removed the bar. No, we could have left the bars there and strapped the speakers to it.
See how fast we could go around and see if you could tell the difference. Hey, can you guys tell when they're going this fast? Can you hear it? And there goes the Neolith flying off the.
It's gone,
thing.
Man.
By the way, Tim dropped another 20
I
bucks.
see that. Tim, you're amazing, brother. Golly, you're so awesome. All right. So Tim says, I have a 6400H. That's a Denon receiver. And that was the one. Yeah, I reviewed the 6400H. Really enjoyed that. So I'd like to expand my system by using the pre-outs for separates along with the unit's power.
Oh, yeah.
Why does no one do this? Actually, a lot of people do.
A lot of people do.
So what Tim's talking about is, so he has his speakers. He's got the AVR, so it has built-in amplification. And I think it's rated for maybe like 120 watts a channel, maybe a little bit more. I can't remember, 130, something like that. So the more speakers you add to that AVR, the lower that number per, wattage per speaker it ends up outputting. So by the time you add all 11 speakers, you might be down to like 55 watts a channel or 60 or 80 or something like that. But it's well below what the output at 2-channel rating is. And so his question is, why can't he just use the pre-outs to go to an amplifier or multiple amplifiers? So Tim, sometimes there's a bunch of different ways to do this. So some people will take and they'll buy like a 3-channel amplifier, and they'll run their left, center, and right channel off of that external amplifier. Maybe it's a 200 by 3 from Emotiva, maybe the XPA3, or maybe they'll do a DR3, which is like 350 watts a channel. So they'll run their left, center, and right off of an AVR. Off of an external amplifier, and then let the AVR handle the rest of the surrounds and Atmos. Some people do a 5-channel amplifier, handle maybe the bed layer speakers, and let the AVR handle the Atmos. So there's a bunch of different ways to do that. The cool thing with an AVR like the 6400, the pre-outs are always hot, okay? And so the receiver doesn't care who's powering what. So you plug in, send that out to amplifier, and you don't have to worry about changing any configurations inside the AVR. It just knows to power that. Because like I said, each one of those pre-outs are always hot. They're sending signal out to that. So yeah, as far as why no one does this, actually probably quite a few people do this. And really that's kind of how people get into like going down that road of separates. Because let's face it, the amplifier is expensive. Sometimes it costs as much as the AVR does. And so usually you'll start off with an AVR, and then later on you may add an amplifier. And then you're like, hey, I already have the amplifier. That's expensive. Maybe I should go down the separates route and buy an actual processor that's just like what I have. I have a Marantz processor that doesn't have any internal amplification. So absolutely, that'd be a great way to do it. What I always tell people is, how much difference are you going to hear by adding an external amplifier to that? Part of that's got a pretty beefy power supply, honestly. It's actually really well. But if your speakers are pretty inefficient, so if you look at the sensitivity rating and they're, in the low 90s or definitely in the 80s, yeah, you're probably more than likely going to benefit greatly from adding an amplifier. I've always had Klipsch speakers for many, many years. And when I reviewed that system, I had Klipsch La Scalas as my front soundstage. They're 104 decibels with 1 watt. I didn't need a whole lot of power. So when I added an external amplifier to them, it didn't really make that much of a difference. So your mileage may vary on that as far as will you hear a difference, how much difference. But I do like having external amplification because I know just for peace of mind, I can crank my system as loud as I want to, and my system's not going to run out of gas, even powering 11 speakers, because I've got a dedicated amplifier for that. So absolutely, that's a great way to go. There's definitely nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of people that do that. And maybe even in the chat, if you guys have an external amplifier connected to an AVR, let him know, kind of share your thoughts. And is that a good option? Would you recommend that?
A couple people have already shared their thoughts.
See, man, you guys are amazing. Maverick, appreciate the $5 super chat. Would frequency response be more even out in my system if I have towers with 10s or 12s instead of the 8s that I have? I have 2 PB16 Ultras. So I don't think adding if I'm understanding you correctly, right now you have 2 towers, a left and right. They have 8-inch drivers. So if you were to upgrade that to the next higher, I'm going to use Klipsch for example. Let's say you have the Reference Premier RP 8000. So they have dual 8s. If you were to upgrade to dual 10s, which would be the RF series, RF version 3 or 2 or 1, would you get more even bass response in your room? The answer is no, because the size of the woofer isn't going to change how that bass is interacting in your room. Where your speakers are placed, where your subwoofers are placed, that's where you're going to get the interaction and smoother bass in your system. It would
depend on if he's running the speakers in full range.
Think so?
Well, if he's using the speakers in full range and using the subs up front, and then maybe or using their attached low-end woofers and then puts the PB16s in the rear, maybe. what traditionally happens if you set the speakers to small is you're going to be able to lower your crossover.
Right.
And that means more directional low frequency coming from the actual towers. As far as evening out your frequency response,
okay.
If they're in small, no.
All right. So Maverick says, like, would I be able to put the crossover lower for my towers to even out the bass? I see. And not make some notes as bloated. Okay. That makes more sense.
Well, why is it bloated?
So are you getting boomy bass? Is what you're saying?
That's boomy bass is usually a result of either a room interaction or time alignment being wrong.
Later, Adam. Good to see you, man.
So I would check those two things before spending money on speakers, because that's probably an EQ problem.
Mid-bass Maestro says, hey guys, sometimes when I'm running Odyssey, it sets my subs to 30 and 33 feet. Wow. Yeah, that's a little off, maybe.
Maybe it's got a really big room.
Yeah. So, and really, all right. So my understanding too, when it's setting that, it's not necessarily taking a measurement and saying it's this far. It's trying to make that sound as good as possible. And so it's setting a delay.
You need to think a bit about it as a time delay.
So it's not necessarily in feet, but I've one next to the center and one behind the couch. Most of the time Odyssey set the distance closer to the real measurement. Now, if you're saying when you run it, most of the time it's one way, and then sometimes when you run it, it's like way off.
It can get it wrong.
Yeah, that more than likely is just a calibration. I would just run it again. And try to get that to, I mean, especially if you've got like a baseline, it's always this, and then it just,
you need to remember that things in your signal chain are going to accumulate delay, and active speakers are going to add delay. Wire length is going to add delay. Your subs may have delay. So your room correction is going to try and equalize everything to the furthest away speaker. And as Michael said, that 30 or 33 feet isn't actually a distance. It's effectively just a time, and it's using the distance as a way to describe that time. So typically audio delay is done in milliseconds, but it used to be done just by measuring how far away the speaker was, or that was the easiest way. But now people are getting more complex in that you're actually taking the auditory delay and impulse response to get a time alignment, and that's the correct way to do it, because just doing a physical measurement of how far the speaker was away from your main listening position doesn't account for any delay added by anything that audio signal has to go through before hitting your speaker. So Odyssey may be right, but if it's, as Michael said, if it's doing that only every once in a while, then it's getting confused. And room correction will do that. Just run it again.
Chris says, what do you guys do for dust control for everything? How often do you clean your dust filters on your larger projection systems?
I just run in circles really fast around my room, and it gets rid of it.
Yeah, so going to the projector, so like on my projector, how often do I clean? Probably not as much as I should.
If you're Tony, every day.
Not, I should dust more often. So honestly, I don't know. It's usually, oh man, I hadn't done that in a while. I probably ought to clean it. But what's weird, every time I clean it, I don't see any dust in it.
I usually stay away from interacting with the projector, especially the lens, because that's a really easy way to get dust blobs and stuff into the lens housing.
But I mean, just changing the filter, do you do that often? Do you do it monthly? Do you do it quarterly, annually?
I don't know that I've ever done it. My projectors they don't stay around long enough for that to happen.
Yeah, he just buys a new projector.
Shut up. As a dealer, they don't really stay around long enough, because I have to constantly cycle things to make sure that, you know, I don't have something sitting for too long. So they don't usually sit for long enough to do that. I think the biggest thing is just make sure your room's decently clean.
Yeah.
Don't blow like compressed air or anything at your projector.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
No.
Be gentle.
Yep. Just love on it.
She's delicate.
Vector Prime, appreciate the $5 super chat, man. Always grateful and appreciative of you guys. Let's see. Jonathan has a question. He says, is there a lot of difference on performance between the JTR two-way and three-way designs? I don't know how many two-way. I don't know what models are two-way. I mean, most of the ones that I've heard are like the RT series, like the towers. I've heard the 212s, the 215s, and then I've heard maybe 2 of the monitors. So I have the 212 HTRs, and Jeff made an 8 that Scott Newby had. But again, I'm not sure which one of those are 2-ways and 3-ways. I just know, man, I've heard a bunch of different JTR systems, and I've been blown away at all of them. So do you know any difference, Ryan?
I think once you get to a certain level of a certain type of speaker, it's very difficult to be able to tell. You start nitpicking, and yeah, it may be a better measurable difference, and you may subjectively be or even objectively be able to tell if the speakers were right next to each other and you were A-Bing them.
Yeah.
But if you're not A-Bing them, the brain is an amazing thing, and it has a tendency to forget.
Yeah. So
I think you just be happy with either one.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get the 2-way at a great price point, that's where I would stay.
So I'm gonna come back to this. So Vector dropped a $5 super chat, and he did have a question. Yeah. So first time jumping into the home theater deep end. Welcome to the club, brother. You're in good company because we're all in it together.
Oh, so we're past the deep end, my friend. We're
drowning. We're looking for the life preservers. So he says he's looking at the Polk R700S and the R400. With those to start, would a 3800H, that's a Denon receiver, and it's 105 watts by 2-channel be enough, or do I need more power? The room is 10 foot by 14 foot.
I think that's plenty.
So I wonder let us know how many speakers you're going to be powering in that room.
I think even then it's fine to start.
Yeah. I
mean, you can always add an amplifier with its pre-outs later.
Does the 3800 have the pre-outs?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So
I think it's the Denon equivalent of the Cinema 50.
Okay.
I think. But if you need a 3800, can help you out.
Okay. Well, I'll drop your thing in here. So I don't know if do you have a 3800, or you just
I think he said he was asking, would a 3800 be good enough?
Okay.
But I think it would.
If you need one, reach out to Ryan.
I think it'd be fine, and then get that started, and then add an amplifier down the line and use pre-outs later. I think it's a great starting point. The Polk Reserves are awesome speakers.
Yeah, I reviewed that system. I really was pleased. I really was pleased with it. And I'm actually, funny thing is I actually started my journey with Polk Audio. So that was my first system way back in the day when I worked at Circuit City. I had a whole Polk Audio system with a Velodyne sub. Because kind of like Klipsch, they weren't known for making great subwoofers. So Velodyne was at that time. And so that was the direction I went. All right. Gladiator.
Finally
so Gladiator, yeah. Dude, it's funny. So Gladiator dropped several super chats, and so this is probably part of his question. So I'm glad we're getting to it. So he says, "Hi, I'm using a Denon 4700H in my bedroom, 5.1.2 channel with a limited options for sub placement. Can I improve sub out using a UMic or a Dayton UMMC?" Did we answer that already? That sounds familiar.
You can definitely improve that. We didn't answer the first part
so
of this.
I think
the second part.
Okay.
You can definitely improve the sub experience using a calibration mic.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, you're going to be able to measure that and see where the best frequency response is and be able to dial that in. And if since you've got one subwoofer, I'm not sure he would need like a UMic, like a mini DSP. May not benefit you that much.
Does he say anything about a mini DSP?
No, but I'm just saying, I always recommend that anytime somebody has 2 or more subwoofers. It just allows you to, if you have issues in your frequency.
Yeah, but with a lot of the new processors, they have 4 sub outs.
Yeah, true. So I just wonder I don't know. I guess my thought is, how well do those automatic, I I mean, I guess Dirac Live, that's really good, but you know, I'm not sure Odyssey is going to best like a mini DSP, you know, in manual calibration.
No, but if you get the upper versions of Odyssey, you have PEQ and stuff. You could do that.
True. Ankit says, I'm split between a Epson 6050 and the LS 11000.
Just get the LS 12,000 for a couple $100 more.
So 12,000
over the 11,000.
Okay.
And I've got some LS 12,000s coming in that are on order. You guys are asking all the questions now about gear. I mean, I think they're both great. It depends on the price disparity between the two. I mean, if you get a kick-ass deal on the 6050, do the 6050. But for new ones, especially with laser, the LS 12,000 is the new kid on the block.
Yeah, we had that at M-Wave, and it was a beautiful projector, man. At a gym, when I've told this story before, we did a comparison. He runs up next to me, sits down. He says, Michael, I got everything I needed at M-Wave right here. Being able to see that LS 12,000, it's gorgeous. It's on a much bigger. We had it on a 150-inch screen. He's like, mine isn't going to be that big. I think he's had like 120, maybe 130. He said, mine won't be that big. If it's that bright on 150, it'll be more than sufficient in my room on my smaller screen. He said it's amazing. So he ended up buying it. SRW 1000. Can you use the Omni mic for MSO?
I think the Omni mic software has the ability to do that.
I'm not familiar with MSO, multi-sub optimization. I haven't done that. And I don't have any experience with the Omni mic. See, Jonathan, you're missing out, man. Could answer that. Adam says, I have two 21-inch GSG Devastators. Nice. 19 hertz tuned, and plan on adding multiple 18-inch sealed subs for near field. Any issues with different sub cabinet designs? Not
when they're near field.
So I'm assuming, are the GSG Devastators, is that ported? I'm assuming
they're horns.
Okay. So
No,
we're
you're
looking
fine.
at mixing horns, I mean, ported and sealed.
Well, as long as you do it with near fields, they're so close to you that you're not going to run into any issues. You're probably not even going to EQ those that are right next to you. They're just going to do their thing and leave them alone.
Mac Buttmaster, good to see you, man. He says, fascinating. Does this mean that I should just forego the Onkyo Acu EQ and simply enter my crossovers and distances manually?
I think he's talking about when we were talking, Jonathan and I were doing manual EQs.
Okay.
Possibly. As long as you still are probably going to want to EQ your subs. You don't want to let the subs just do their thing. You can fix a lot of and not have to EQ the subs if you have a bunch of them like Jonathan does. Placement can be a way around that. But for the most part, you're going to want to EQ your subs, do your times or distances, same thing, and set your crossovers. You should be ready to rock and roll.
Hamwich says, I have a budget of up to $15,000 for a projector. What should I go with?
Hamwich was the one talking about the NZ8.
Oh, man. See, Hamwich, why are you depressing me, man? That's what I want. Eventually, I want to get to the NZ8. So, well, you know what to do. If you're interested in one of those, reach out to Ryan. Get it, enjoy it. Send me a picture of it. Tell me how amazing it is, how much I'm missing out. Maybe I'll pony up for one down the road. So, but yeah, the NZ8, man, I love the JVC projectors. Ever since I experienced, a friend of mine bought a used one, and I was like, I had an Epson at the time, and I was like, holy cow, man, this is gorgeous. And then I got the NX7, and I fell in love with it. And then we went to M-Wave, love what JVC offers. So, yeah, the new lasers. I'm jealous, man. I'm jealous.
In that price range.
It's a beautiful projector. Dan Black says, am I gaining anything by going with the A52 Plus, so that's from Parasound, versus the Monolith 7x200 I have now? I know you reviewed the A52 Plus. So again, I'm one of those guys, I don't think I would hear any difference between the Parasound A52 Plus versus the Monolith 7x200. 7x200 has got plenty of power. The A52 Plus, if I remember correctly, I think it was like 220. I mean, it's not like you're going to hear much difference there. I like the monolith amplifiers. I really do. They're solid.
Yeah.
So if you already got it, I think it's going to be a lateral move. Now the A52 looks gorgeous. It's beautiful.
The A52 is going to last.
Yeah.
And it'll be an heirloom.
Yeah.
For how long that thing's going to last.
Yeah. I mean, it can definitely last for decades. Monolith hasn't been out as long, but here's the thing that Monolith had. That's the thing. They're made by ATI, designed by ATI. So that gives me some faith in them on their durability. So
they're both great amplifiers.
I mean, I've had mine for.
Okay. If I were to buy one new, or if I were to be given one, I'd want the Parasound.
Oh, I mean, sure.
The Parasound 100%. Is just
100%. Yeah, if somebody wants to give me one, I mean, yeah. I mean, rock solid. The thing that I love about Parasound is that's all they make for the most part. I mean, they're just.
They got some like pre's and stuff, but not really
for
the
most part. I mean, their focus is we want to make the best amplifiers we can, durable, powerful, and rock solid. They're awesome.
They will drive anything. Like it doesn't matter how hard the speaker is to drive. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of, but like I said, you've already got the monolith.
Yeah,
I wouldn't sell it to. It'd be a lateral move.
It's a side grade. You're not gaining anything.
I'm there with you.
I can help you out and get one if you want one. I'm a Parasound dealer, but I don't really recommend doing it.
Yeah. So that just shows you guys, Ryan. I mean, he's looking out for your best interest. So if you're interested in gear, if you got upgrades you want to make,
I've talked to multiple people off the ledge this week.
Yeah.
So. I think Luna, who's in here, Michael Luna, I think I talked him down off of something.
Yeah. Oh, he's got he's got one down here. He'll be one of the. I think he's the next to last question we're going to hit tonight. We're going to finish these and then we'll call it a night. So Derek says 2 subs. How for should you put them? Okay, Derek, you must be as tired as I am. So 2 subs. How far apart should you put them on the front wall? Done on Shane channel. Okay, on Shane's channel. Were roasting home theater and said they were too close. I don't know who they were roasting.
It's probably when they were roasting my theater.
Who knows? They might have been roasting mine, but I don't care. Don Dunn's a good dude, man. He's fun, but he.
I mean, you're not going to get any benefits from having multiple subs right next to each other.
No, you
except
lose
for increased output.
Correct. Yeah, you don't get the benefit as much as the seat to seat, coverage. I'm kind of like that narcissistic thing, like Ryan, you talk about. I mainly set it up for mine because most of the time I'm the only one in there.
Nobody else knows any better.
Yeah, you're right. My wife, she don't care. She don't
turn
care.
It down.
She would rather not. She'd rather sit in a null, to be honest with you. She's like, oh, this is awesome. I don't hear bass. Did you turn your subs off? No, you're sitting in a null. Ryan says, what does everything think?
Everyone.
Yeah. So Ryan says, why does everyone think? I don't know. I can't read. What does everything think of the Denon A1H? So
I think it's the new king for AVRs.
It's the bad mama jama.
It weighs 80 pounds.
Yeah, it's a beast, man.
If you want one, I got one in stock.
Youth man deal?
Beast.
Maybe not.
No comment.
All right. So if you want one, hit him up. All right.
Gets Dirac, I think, next month.
Oh, nice. Tim says I have a Denon 6400H. A lot of people with 6400H tonight.
Wait, we answered that question already.
Oh, okay, that's why. Hey, love you, Tim.
Vector
he had the super chat. Vector back with another $10 super chat. Appreciate it. My plan to start with the 3800 to power the R700s and the R400 with the onboard amp, and later this year buy a pair of the R200s and surrounds and a 3-channel. Dude, I love that plan.
Yeah, that'll work great.
Having a 3-channel amp to power the LCR, absolutely, that would work. And a
lot
of guys
may be surprised, and you'd be able to run everything off of the 3800.
100%.
If you don't listen stupid loud, you are perfectly fine. And even if you do, as long as your room interaction is positive and you get enough room gain, you're probably going to utilize far less power than you think you are going to.
And a lot of guys will ask me that, like, Michael, they haven't bought the amplifier or the AVR yet, and they're already asking, should I add an amplifier? And I always tell them, like Ryan says, try it without the amplifier, see how it does, you know? And if it meets your needs, it reaches the volumes, it doesn't distort, it sounds super clean, you're going to be solid. I mean, I've never experienced massive night and day difference by adding an external amplifier. I still use one because I like having that extra headroom, the power, the dynamics, but it's one of those things where it's kind of that law of diminishing return. Yes, you'll get some benefits from it, but it's not like night and day most of the time, unless your speakers are just completely inefficient. They need a lot of power, and the amplifier is just running out, or the AVR is running out of gas.
Actually be misleading because people misinterpret an increase in SPL as an increase in clarity.
Sure.
So what ends up happening a lot of times is people add an amplifier and be like, oh, this sounds so much better.
That's just a little bit louder.
The volume.
Interesting.
So if you do that, you have to SPL match when you do the transition. And if you directly A/B compare them, you're not going to hear the difference unless there was something drastically wrong before. Your speakers are abhorrently inefficient, or you're running into some other type of issue. But Vector Prime's case, I think he's probably going to be fine just running everything off of the 3800H.
Yeah, at least try that. And the good thing is you're not adding a ton of speakers. You got, what, 5 speakers?
Yeah.
The R700s, the center channel, yeah, and then a pair of surrounds. So more than likely that AVR is going to be totally fine.
You're going to be fine.
Yeah. And they're not super inefficient by any means. So cool deal, man. Last couple questions here. Kinglix. Yeah, Kinglix. I had to think how to pronounce that. So Kinglix says, I have a dedicated 13 by 17 foot room with a 120-inch screen sitting 11 foot away. I'm having a hard time choosing whether to go with 7.2.4 or stay 5.2.4. Will I notice a difference with the rears? Great question. My room is 13 by 19. I'm not sure. And again, my rear surround backs are not ideal because they're up too high, but I don't have any options of bringing those down because of my door entryway. Again, it's going to be incremental. It's not going to be massive difference adding 2 surround backs. Do you have 1 row or 2 rows? I don't think that's going to be a massive difference, to be honest with you. I think a properly set up 5.2.4 would be better than an improper, like in my case, an improper 7.2.4. So that's my take on it. What do you think, Brian?
I'm thinking, does going 7.2.4 just mean spending more money, or does it mean choosing lesser equipment? Would be my question.
Okay.
5.2.4 is the sweet spot. I mean,
yeah, it sounds like that's what he's got right now in. So he already has the AVR that's equipped with that.
Throw a kink in there. It's can be dependent on the speakers. Like with mine, because of how narrow they are,
your dispersion pattern,
I'd probably want 7.
Okay.
But for most people, I think 5. But if you've got the discretionary budget, do 7.
So here's one thing that I remember when we first went from 5.1 to just 7.1, we didn't have Atmos to worry about because that just adds to the complexity of what your brain is hearing. A lot of times I can't tell you exactly which speakers are active. I know I'm hearing sound, but I'm like, I don't know if that's the back right surround or if it's the Atmos top right, and that sort of thing. But I remember people going from 5.1 to 7.1. They're like, man, I'm not hearing. It was kind of like when people say Atmos, they're like, man, I'm not hearing a ton of stuff happen back there.
Nope.
So especially again,
if your speakers aren't directive, like highly focused, it's very difficult to be able to tell.
I don't think it's going to be a massive difference for you. So, all right.
I think you'd be better served by doing acoustic treatments.
Ooh, hey, that's good advice there. That's solid.
Or more subs.
More subs. Last couple. Rick says, I have $7,000 to $8,000 budget for 2 subs. What do you recommend? My room is 16 by 22. The speakers are Arundel speakers. So 7,000 to 8,000 budget for 2 subs. So you're looking at $4,000 subs. I mean, again, I kind of recommend what I have. That's what I would recommend. Well, he won't be able to get into RS2s probably for that because they're like 4,500 each. RS1s will probably be close to that. So that's JTR RS1s. They're an 18-inch sealed sub. You'd have a lot of output, easily pressurize a 16 by 22 room.
If you need some, can hook you up. They're on a 2 to 3 month backlog though.
Yeah. You gotta be patient, but I promise you they're worth it. So mine are flat down. I have so here's the cool thing. So I have the RS2s, so they have the dual 18-inch drivers instead of the single RS1. For the most part, the only difference, and I've asked Tony this, is just I think it's I don't remember if it's 3 dB output difference or 6 dB output. That's it.
3.
That's literally it. You're talking 3 or 6 dB output. Same performance as far as low end extension. They're tuned to 10 hertz. Mine are flat down to my RS2s are flat down to 5 hertz in my room. So yeah,
get another $5.
High Finest, appreciate the $5 super chat. Best on-wall speakers. Can't go in walls due to utilities behind the drywall.
That's subjective.
I know, but all right. So what are some great on-wall options?
Martin Logan's Statement 40XW.
Oh, Martin Logan 40.
They're $20,000 a piece.
Oh gosh, yeah. What's your budget there? All right. Holy cow! I don't know, man.
You can. So here's something to consider. High Finest is that a lot of in walls, especially from high grade manufacturers. Like I think you can do this with Perlisten. I'm not actually sure with Perlisten, but Martin Logan, you definitely can. You can buy on-wall brackets, so you can actually mount an in-wall speaker on the wall.
Interesting.
You can
if it has an enclosed box.
Yes, it has to have a built-in backer box, but it's for the gym.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, you didn't specify a budget. You just said best. So I kind of took that and ran with it. But as far as on wall for that,
just use a PA speaker, right? I mean, if you're just getting music to inside a gym, man, I'd go with like an active. I don't know, like a
actually
JBL
the easiest
speaker.
thing to do. The easiest thing to do, so you don't even have to worry about that. You could just run it off of anything. Would be to do studio monitors because they're active.
That's what I'm saying, like an active speaker. Yeah.
You just said PA.
But I said like an active speaker.
Oh, yeah. I would do something like a studio monitor or something because then you can just plug in. You could run a splitter, like a 3.5 millimeter splitter to like RCA or to 1/4 inch, and just run them off your phone.
Yeah.
That'd be what I would do. And you can get studio monitors for a couple $100.
Yeah, most of the guys are using, for something like that. Absolutely. Because here's the thing, in a gym, you're not like cranking this thing. You just want some good, clean sound. So yeah, I think that would be the way that I would go. I wouldn't go with
Costco. I think has Klipsch the 5s on sale for $300.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that'd be a good option.
Okay,
for $300. I mean,
Grave Danger says Klipsch the 9s.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's wanting to do a 5.2.4 for this gym. I'll send progress pics. That's hilarious, man. Dude, he's pimping out his gym, man. I love it. 5.2.4. But
why?
I guess my question is that's my question.
Maybe he wants to do like full immersive audio when he's running on the treadmill.
That's interesting.
If you turn on some Lord of the Rings and feel like he's running in the orc army.
But what if you're facing the wrong way? Then you've got sound coming at you at the wrong direction. I don't know.
The best that I would probably suggest in that,
I want to join your gym is what I want to do, man. Dude, that's awesome.
Probably bookshelves mounted to on wall mounts.
Yeah. I don't think you need a necessarily an on-wall speaker. I'm with Ryan. I would think some kind of unless there's a reason you need on-wall. I mean, think about it. You got a gym. They're up high. Nobody's going to be messing with them.
We just do bookshelves.
Or PA speaker.
Active speaker.
Yeah. That I guess that's
PA
when I think
isn't necessarily active.
That's true. But when I think PA, a lot of times, like say for instance, like a DJ, they're using active built-in amplifier. I call those PA. They're in the professional audio realm is what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yep. All right. So last two questions of the night. Man, this is crazy. Another 3-hour show, man. Appreciate you guys hanging around, man. There's still 146 people hanging out with us. Love you guys.
146 people wondering what's wrong with us.
You guys are killing it with the super chats, man. Showing the love. Appreciate that. And before we even get to these last two, I'm just going to throw this up there again. We'd love to have you guys join us for M-Wave. Dates are July 14th through the 16th. All the information is at the website, MidwestAVExperience.com. A lot of you guys are coming already. If you haven't gotten your tickets, we'd love to have you out there. We're going to have a bunch of stuff for you to demo. We've got full Dolby Atmos demo rooms, experience rooms that you'll be able to experience. We're going to have we got a lazy Susan now, so we can demo some speakers and blind comparisons. We've got
you guys heard it right. I bought the parts during the stream.
We've got projector comparisons that we're going to put 2 projectors side by side, and you're going to be able to look at them and see what the differences are. Blind A/B comparisons, and then we'll share with you what you're looking at. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. We've got some great brands, some great partners, and it continues to grow daily. So we'd love to have you out for that. So all the information on the website. And this video is sponsored by M-Wave. Just kidding. We're just pumped about it, man.
Wish they'd give us some money.
I know, man. Them jokers are cheap. It's just all sitting in PayPal till we have the event. Actually, this year Michael's got all the money. Last year you had everything in your PayPal account. Now I've got it. Now I've got it in but I did give you access to it. But yeah, we just had that money in there before the event. We soon got to pay for the event too.
They haven't gotten back to me. I should reach out to them tomorrow.
When do y'all want some money, man?
Yeah,
I want to make sure we got
they said they were sending it over to legal to drop the contract and stuff. I don't think they're in a rush.
Yeah, true. All right, man. Michael Luna says, shout out to Ryan. He's actually a pretty cool dude. He will legit take the time to talk with you with options and recommend products that he thinks will help you, even if he doesn't sell. So that's super, super cool. And really, Ryan got into this because he's been burned by dealers, not to say that all dealers are bad by any means, but there's just like any other profession. There's some guys out there that'll take advantage of you and a lot of guys that are just trying to make a sale. And so at the end of the day, Ryan wanted to make sure that he's providing a service and recommendations based off what he truly believes versus what's going to pad his pocket per se. Of course, he'd love to sell you some equipment, but as you saw earlier tonight, there's plenty of times that he'll say, I don't think you need it. Now, if you want to buy it, I'll gladly sell it to you, but I don't think you necessarily need it. So, but he'll shoot you straight. So appreciate the shout out.
Thanks, Michael.
For
both of you.
Ryan, he's a good dude.
You and Luna.
He's a good dude. Vector Prime says first time jump. I thought we did that one. Hey, look at there, dude.
Bruce Barnes says he has a follow-up question.
Okay, let me see.
Is he gonna...
Hold on, one quick follow-up.
Are you typing?
All right, Bruce.
There it is.
There we go. All right, Bruce says, when it comes to powered speakers like the 9s or whatever, can you use the pre-outs to those powered speakers as surrounds? I'm trying to think of how that. Ideally, these are designed because I'm looking at I've got the McLarens, the 5s, and my daughter has the regular 5s. These are designed for 2-channel, the way they're set up. And what he's saying is, can you take an AVR, use the pre-outs, go into the preamp inputs, and
yes,
in essence, I guess I think that would be a super expensive way to go.
Well, yeah, but all an active speaker like this is it just has the amplifier built into it.
But I guess my thought is, all right, so he's paying for Bluetooth. He's paying for all the other stuff that's built into the 9s.
Maybe he's just using the 9s as an example.
Okay.
I think he's just using it as an example.
Yeah.
This is active. Yeah.
Yes, because basically what he's saying is, can you use 11 the 9s?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Sure.
You could.
I've never heard anybody. Yeah. He said a pair of the 5s would probably be cheaper. Yeah. And a separate amp than other speakers. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's $150 a speaker.
I think I'd, okay. So here's part of the other, not challenge. So typically when you run something like that, no, because even in those, I'm just thinking like the 5s, they have, you know, an amplifier built into one of the speakers, and then there's like a what I call an umbilical cord speaker cable that runs to the other one.
Oh, he just wants to use the last pair as so he doesn't have to buy an amplifier because he's got a Cinema 50 and he doesn't.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, because I'm thinking 9 or 11 5s or 9. I'm like, holy crap, that would, I've never heard anybody wanting to do that. Okay, that makes sense. So he just wants to buy a pair of those and use those. So yeah, so then you wouldn't have to buy an amplifier. They have a built-in amplifier. I'm trying to think of any reason why that wouldn't work. I don't think it, yeah, I can't think of any reason why that wouldn't work.
DSP may do some weird things.
Yeah. I mean, you got app controls, so that's probably good. Ooh, man.
I meant DSP, like if you ran room correction and stuff, maybe it'll do some weird.
There you go. Yeah, there you go, man. So, Grave, do you already have tickets to M-Wave and you and the wife coming? Let me know in the chat if you're coming. Oh, he said, yeah, so one thing to think about, maybe the timbre matching issues, Randy says. So, cool, man. Well, we are at 3 hours and 15 minutes. Definitely, this has been a marathon. I am too. I've got a headache. I love these headphones, but they're heavy.
They are heavy.
After a while, they start pushing on my glasses, and so they give me a headache. But so usually about after an hour, I'm ready to pull them off. But
and we've been going.
We're 3. Hey, the super chats. I've been distracted, man. I've been it's like, yeah, let's go, baby. So cool, man. So if we didn't get it to your question or comment, I'm sorry. We had, oh my gosh, I bet at one time we had 40 or 50 of them.
There were
in the list, so we tried to get.
I was wondering if they were ever going to go away.
It's all good, man. Hopefully we provide value to this. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We'll wrap it up here. We do this every Sunday night, so if you're catching this on the replay, you got a lot of you got a 3 hour. I mean, man, if you're driving from, you know, long distance, I hear a lot of guys tell us that they really enjoy the longer form.
Kansas City to St. Louis.
Seriously, they're like, dude, I'm driving. This is perfect. I know we've got some truck drivers that listen to us, and so this is like great information for them to learn and grow in their home theater journey. So that's awesome, man. All right, Ryan, as always, appreciate you. Hope you guys have an incredible week. Check us out on M-Wave on the website, MidwestAVExperience.com. And then last, if you need any kind of gear, hit Ryan up, Ryan@ascendav.net. As always, love you guys. Appreciate all the love you shared tonight with the super chats. We'll catch you next week on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great week.
See you guys later. Have a good one.